Chapter 579. The overseas female elite was currently at the stage of starting her own business in China. She was a little annoyed by Bai Hua's pursuit and had no interest in Bai Hua at the moment. This person's personality was skewed. He liked women, and his standard was Jiang Yage. Most importantly, he didn't have a penis. The world view of the character he was playing instantly formed in his mind. As he was being pushed forward, he gently closed his eyes. When he opened them again, he was a completely different person. Some of the impulses unique to men quickly disappeared from his mind as he completely immersed himself in the role. The world-class acting skills were so domineering. Okay, but I'm not good at singing. You guys sing, I'll just sit here for a while. Chen Guang said with a smile. How is that possible? Beautiful people can't sing badly. Chen Yu, you're too humble. Jin Shirui wanted to matchmake the two of them, so her attitude was as gentle as possible. Although Jiang Yage wasn't as cunning as Jin Shirui, she also felt that it was strange. Perhaps she and Chen Yu hit it off. When she first saw her, she was attracted to Chen Guang because of her beautiful smile. Now, she was hugging his waist and sticking close to his body. Even though they were strangers for the first time, she couldn't feel any awkwardness or discomfort in her heart. Usually, she wasn't even this affectionate to other female artists. Forget it, don't think too much about it. Maybe this is what it means to hit it off. No wonder Brother Bai Hua fell in love with her at first sight. She really has a magical charm. Lin Jingwei, who was following behind everyone to Tian He Room 1, was the most flustered. When Chen Guang's body stiffened, he already wanted to turn around and run. But the sudden turn of events made him shiver. It seemed like Brother Guang had changed into a different person. What's going on? His voice was clearly the same as before, without the slightest change, but why did it feel like he was a different person when he spoke with the same voice and tone without any obvious change? What's wrong? Am I hallucinating? As the only person who knew what was going on, Lin Jingwei's uneasiness that he couldn't get rid of disappeared inexplicably. It even gave Lin Jingwei the illusion that the person here today was not his brother Guang at all, but Chen Yu, who should not exist in this world. This was 2F*King scary. Lin Jingwei shuddered silently and followed her in. He greeted the other girls in the room with a stiff expression, then sat alone in the corner and looked at Chen Yu, who was surrounded by many girls like stars surrounding the moon. It's over. Brother Guang has been cross-dressing for too long. It has really opened up a whole new world hidden in his heart. At this time, Chen Guang was so skillful in the crowd of women, chatting with them casually. Everything looked so harmonious, natural, and casual. It was as if he was born to appear in this crowd of young and beautiful girls, chatting with them about skincare, beauty, fashion trends, or the recently trending anime and teen idols. Lin Jingwei felt that things were getting worse and worse. He couldn't understand how Brother Guang, who was clearly not interested in these things, did it. The scariest thing was that Brother Guang obviously didn't know anything, but he could boast about what others said as if he was really a professional. Oh my God. Bai Hua didn't know how Lin Jingwei felt, as if he had seen a ghost. Instead, he quietly pulled him. Finally, I managed to keep Miss Chen. I was a little too impatient before, but it's okay. We can take it slow. Jingwei, tell me about her usual hobbies. I think she has a wide range of interests. Lin Jingwei shook his head blankly. I'm not too sure. What can I say? Play Dota? Drive? Pick up girls? Play darts? Play the piano? Maybe she knows ventriloquism? Forget it, it's better not to say too much. On the other side, Jin Shirui felt that Lin Jingwei and Bai Hua were left alone at the side after coming in, so she tried to bring the topic in the direction of matchmaking Bai Hua and Chen Yu. Chen Yu, which school did you study in? Brother Bai Hua is a genius graduate from Cambridge. The two of you must have a lot in common. Chen Guang, who was completely in the zone, smiled disdainfully. Our Yale and Cambridge are not particularly friendly schools. Lin Jingwei, who was drinking Coke, nearly choked to death. The Coke that went into his nostrils was so sour that tears and snot flowed out. Oh my God, Brother Guang, you're invincible. Can you stop bragging? What Yale? I graduated from Coconut Milk University. Bai Hua smiled. Oh, so it's Yale. I always feel that I hit it off with her. Lin Jingwei covered his nose and snorted. Not to mention Yale. Even if Chun Yu said she was from Western Pacific University, Brother Bai would be able to boast about it. Seeing that her first plan didn't work, Jean Shirue came up with another plan. Then how do you plan to start your business? In my opinion, although there are many new companies emerging in the domestic IT industry, the competition in the entire industry is extremely fierce. It has become a Red Sea. It's better to try to start with some more solid traditional industries and try to explore the overall environment in our country. This is just my personal opinion. I don't know much about business, so please don't laugh at me. Bai Hua, who had been eavesdropping on their conversation, was so touched that his eyes were brimming with tears. All these years of treating Shirue like a sister were not in vain. At the critical moment, you still know how to help me. If this matter succeeds, I will definitely remember your kindness for the rest of my life. You're much more reliable than Jingwei. Jiang Yage, who was next to her, also understood Jean Shirue's thoughts. She smiled and egged her on. I think so too. Oh right, Brother Bai, isn't Tiancheng a big company in the energy industry? Why don't you go to their company as a consultant? That's pretty good. How about this, Brother Bai? Why don't I help you? I'll think of a way to help you get into Tiancheng. Jiang Yage patted her chest heavily. As she spoke, her body was still pressed against Chen Guang's body, and her thighs were tightly pressed against his. Lin Jingwei became nervous again. With his brother Guang's personality, was he going to rock the boat? In the end, Chen Guang didn't move at all. He didn't even feel the slightest discomfort. He just smiled and thanked Jiang Yage. Then he looked at Bai Hua, who was anxiously looking at him. I originally considered Tiancheng, but I still think it's more comfortable to rely on myself. Mr. Bai and my sisters, I appreciate your kindness. After being rejected again, Jean Shirue and Jiang Yage were a little disappointed. Bai Hua, on the other hand, was disappointed, but felt that it was reasonable. Everyone had come to Yinhua to sing. Besides, other than Jean Shirue and Jiang Yage, there were also 2 or 3 second-generation singers in the room. They were either playing around or had seriously released singles. After chatting for a while, Chen Guang finally half-egged and half-forced him to take the microphone. Jean Shirue and Jiang Yage had a good plan. First, they would let Chen Yu sing a solo song. Then, they would pick Hiroshima Love. Naturally, they would create an opportunity for Bai Hua to sing a duet with her. Although Bai Hua wasn't a professional singer, he was still pretty good. Lin Jingwei silently looked at Chen Guang, who had picked up the microphone with a helpless look on his face. After holding back for a long time, he still couldn't pull out the wet wipes from his trouser pocket and stuff them into his ears. He can't really sing, can he? Lin Jingwei thought. However, when Chen Guang opened his mouth, Lin Jingwei's heart calmed down. Fortunately, the singer hadn't been replaced. This was the real Brother Guang. Although his voice was as beautiful as a fairy's, his unexplainable sense of music was undeniable. As always, he was off-key and circling the stage 360 degrees. Well, seeing this scene, there was no need to sing Hiroshima Love. Jean Shirue silently deleted the song list and didn't dare to mention it again. Everyone felt that God was fair. He had given Chen Yu such a tall, beautiful, elegant, and graduated from Yale. Yet he had given her a good voice. It was too cruel to others. Chen Yu sings so well. Bai Hua cupped his hands in front of his chest, but his face was full of enchantment. Lin Jingwei shrank back. Damn, it felt like Brother Bai Hua was basically a useless person now. You don't even have your principles. Seeing that he had more or less dealt with it, Chen Guang pretended to look at the time and was ready to leave. Jiang Yage's eyes were sharp. Yo, Sister Chen Yu, are you using a popcorn phone? Don't many people in the US use apples? Chen Guang didn't have the slightest discomfort. He elegantly said, I don't like to use the same things as others. Alright, it's getting late. I really have to go. I have a flight to Beijing tomorrow morning, so I can't sleep too late. With this reason, no one could make him stay. Although Jean Shirue felt regretful, she still struggled and said, Then let Brother Bai Hua send you. It's not safe for a girl to go out so late at night. Chen Guang waved his hand and refused. No need, no need. I drove here myself. You guys sing, don't send me. On the other side, Bai Hua still didn't give up. He braced himself and wanted to stand up. Chen Guang looked at him coldly. His eyes hid a deep sense of annoyance. Lin Jingwei coughed violently, waking Bai Hua from his stupor. He secretly blamed himself for being too impatient. He had already made her unhappy, and if he continued to pester her shamelessly, it would only make her feel more and more disgusted. Forget it, he decided to leave it at that for today. At least he had achieved his most basic goal. Then Lin Jingwei, sisters, shall we say goodbye? Solomon, you look cuter than on TV. Chen Guang covered his mouth and smiled. Then he turned around and walked away. This series of small actions made the image of a strong woman who liked cute little girls jump out of her skin. Lin Jingwei was shocked. Brother Guang's acting was godly. At this time, he finally understood the reason for Chen Guang's sudden change. Brother Guang must have had an explosion in his universe and inexplicably awakened his acting talent. A natural best actress. Damn, best actress. And so it was born. At this time, Zhang Yage put down the microphone and stood up. She said goodbye to her sisters and said that she was going to order some drinks. After walking out of Tianhe Room 1, Zhang Yage went straight to the public restroom. Standing in front of the restroom, she hesitated for about 3 seconds. Then she knocked on the door of the men's restroom and shouted in a low voice, "Is there anyone inside? Mop the floor." There was no movement. She rushed in. The doors of the 9 cubicles were wide open, and they were empty. Zhang Yage turned around and walked out of the men's restroom. She went straight to the women's restroom next door. This time, she didn't pretend to be cleaning and directly opened the door. All the private rooms in Inori had their own private restroom. This public restroom was indeed not used. Out of the 12 stalls in the women's restroom, only one was tightly shut. The sound of running water and rustling could be heard coming from inside. Zhang Yage bent down and looked at the shoes through the gap below. She had a look of realization on her face. It's you. When she was sticking to this guy just now, she smelled this familiar scent. There was a faint musk, or perhaps it was more appropriate to say that it was a man's scent. I always felt that there was something fishy about you, and I was right. No wonder I felt that you were kind when I first saw you. No wonder I felt that you were cheap when you smiled just now. I thought that I had fallen in love with a woman. It scared me so much. But if this is you, then it all makes perfect sense. Your acting is a little too overbearing. It's really similar. I've never seen anyone act more like you. If I hadn't found your popcorn at the critical moment and confirmed my thoughts, I would have let you run away. But you've finally spoken your heart in front of me. My hot blood didn't flow in vain. You must have been touched by me. You still like me, right?
Chen Guang.
Let's see where you can run this time. Chapter 580. Zhang Yage didn't like to think too much about things, but it didn't mean that she was stupid. She just didn't want to spend her mind on things that she didn't care about. For a girl like her, the real strength wasn't the messy reasoning in her mind, but her intuition. She had her intuition first, and then used it as a starting point to deduce all the way. Only then did she completely confirm the fact that Chen Yu was Chen Guang's impersonation. In this regard, Jin Shirue wasn't as good as her. In fact, it was quite a mess. The safest place for Chen Guang to change was, of course, in the second private room, but Sister Hua wasn't in the mood to wait for him. She finished his makeup, threw him a bottle of makeup remover, and left quickly. After coming out of Tianhe No. 1, Chen Guang didn't think too much. He just wanted to change back into men's clothes as soon as possible. As for why he chose the women's restroom, cough, cough, cough. Those who understood. Unfortunately, there was no one inside, but he didn't feel regretful. Instead, he went into the stall and quickly changed his clothes. High-end clubs like Inua didn't focus on customer flow. The employees also had their own restroom. This public restroom was sparsely populated, so Chen Guang wasn't worried about being seen outside. He heard the door open halfway, but he didn't think much of it. People would leave when they came in to use the restroom. By the time he finished removing his makeup, the person would have already left. Sure enough, after a while, He heard the door open again. The person should have left. He didn't know that this was Jiang Yage's careful disguise. Finally, he removed most of the makeup on his face. Then, he stuffed the wig and unisex shirt into his bag and carefully checked the front camera of his phone. There was no sign of makeup on his face. He smiled with satisfaction and was ready to leave this damn place. He listened carefully for about 10 seconds, and when he was sure that there was no one else in the women's restroom, he opened the door boldly. Just as he was about to walk out, he was shocked by a certain person who was looking at him with her hands on her hips and a sneer. He shook his head, thinking that he was hallucinating. Then he narrowed his eyes and opened them again. The person was still there, looking at him with deep meaning in her eyes. Chen Guang took a step back, then closed the door with a backhand. Impossible. This was impossible. This was an illusion. It must be an illusion. I must have opened the door the wrong way. I'll be fine if I do it again. Then, he carefully opened the door a little bit. Jiang Yage, who had been blocking the door with her hands on her hips, was already standing at the edge of the door. She tilted her head and stared at him meaningfully with her big eyes. This was not a dream, nor was it an illusion. This was King real. Stop hiding. You're not dreaming. It's me, Jiang Yage said. Chen Guang's mouth twitched. What a coincidence. Why are you in the men's toilet? Jiang Yage glanced at the bag he was trying to hide behind his back and said with a sneaky smile, "This is the women's room. You should also hide it. I saw your LV bag." Chen Guang took a deep breath and suddenly looked behind her with a horrified expression. Look, there's a ghost in the mirror. Then, he fiercely opened the door, planning to escape. Unexpectedly, Jiang Yage had already seen through his plot. She immediately opened her arms and held the cubicle door from both sides. You want to run? Do you believe that I won't tell Bai Hua about you pretending to be Chinyu? Chen Guang hesitated for 10 seconds. He carefully weighed Jiang Yage's character in his heart and came to a despairing conclusion. She could really do such a heartless and wicked thing. Fine, I won't run anymore. Let's see what she wants to do. I'll be stabbed if I stick out my head, and I'll be stabbed if I stick out my head. Do whatever you want. I'll let you do whatever you want. Bumping into her head-on was really bad luck. Even if it was Jin Shuriwei who bumped into him, it would be better.
Sigh.
I won't run. Tell me, what do you want? It's all up to you, okay? Chen Guang sighed. He was like a piece of meat on the chopping board. Jiang Yage's big eyes turned, and one clever idea after another appeared in her mind. This was a heaven-sent opportunity for her to grab hold of his blunt weakness. If she didn't make good use of it, she would be letting herself down. Look at you pretending to be a gentleman in front of me all day long, but you must have at least masturbated in front of me countless times. You know that you can eat your fill, and the whole family won't starve, but you put me halfway up the mountain and tormented me. As a person, you can't be so selfish. Jiang Yage was very proud of herself. In fact, she had selectively neglected one thing. The truly selfish person might be herself. She understood why Chen Guang would dress as a girl and pretend to be Chinyu. But her subconscious was avoiding this question. She was very clear that Chen Guang had made such a big sacrifice and risked being exposed. He dressed as a girl to charm Bai Hua. It could only be because he had fallen in love with Jin Shuriwei. He longed to make the act with Jin Shuriwei real, so he used this extreme method to eliminate a strong competitor. And now he had succeeded. When she confirmed that Chen Guang was Chinyu, Jiang Yage completely understood. But she forced herself to be immersed in the joy of finding out his embarrassment, deliberately forgetting this possibility. Because she really couldn't accept it. I was the one who confessed, and I was the one who took the initiative. Why did you fall in love with Sister Shuriwei? This isn't fair to me. When the accident happened in Painting Lake, Jiang Yage was willing to give the chance to live to Jin Shuriwei without hesitation. But this time it was different. She could give up her life, but when it came to love, she wanted to be selfish for once. What's more, Sister Shuriwei didn't like him. Wouldn't it be a happy ending for everyone if he and I were together? Jiang Yage comforted herself and numbed herself. She had succeeded. Now she just wanted to do something to cut off this guy's escape route. She wanted him to understand that she was serious and not joking with him. Just as she was thinking about what to do, the door to the women's restroom was suddenly pushed open. Jiang Yage woke up with a start. Without thinking carefully, she pushed Chen Guang inside, followed by him, and locked the cubicle door from the inside. The unique clattering sound of high heels on the ground came from afar. She didn't know if it was a guest or Inua's staff, but that wasn't important. What was important was that Chen Guang and Jiang Yage were now squeezed face-to-face in this small cubicle. Originally, Inua's toilet cubicle was very large, but that was only relative to one person's use. Now that two people were squeezed in, it was a big problem. In fact, it wasn't that Jiang Yage couldn't force the distance between the two of them. If she wanted to, her back was against the door, and there should be at least a foot of space between their chests. But she had to be willing to do that. Chen Guang was already clinging to the water tank behind him, but he couldn't stand Jiang Yage clinging to him fiercely and hugging him tightly. His eyes widened and his mouth opened slightly. He wanted to shout and ask Jiang Yage what she wanted to do. However, Jiang Yage quickly reached out to cover his mouth and shushed him softly. Then she tiptoed and put her mouth to his ear. "Don't be agitated. If someone hears it, it'll be all over. Sister Shuriwe and I will be in the headlines." Chen Guang was shocked, and a creepy news headline popped up in his mind. Two women fighting for their husbands, Jin Shuyue's fiancé and Jiang Yage have an affair in the toilet. This headline was too explosive. There was no need to say anything else. It was guaranteed to be on the headlines of major news media for 3 days. It would jump to the top of Weibo's trending search. Unless there was a coup in a country, there was no way it would drop. If he was a gossipy person, he wouldn't be able to resist such an exciting and explosive headline.
He was really well behaved.
Fine, he had to accept his fate. Once their hearts calmed down, the current situation between the two of them became particularly exciting. Although Jiang Yage had never shown herself in a sexy style, Chen Guang, who had seen her many times, knew that this girl's chest was very voluptuous. At this moment, the two of them were so close to each other that a strong sense of oppression swept over like a wave. Their ribs were pressed hard, and the elasticity was amazing, but it also had a soft touch. The places where their bodies were in contact through their clothes were pressed into two perfect circles. From time to time, they would gently move and tickle their breasts. Jiang Yage's head was resting on his shoulder, and the hot breath she exhaled was gently tickling Chen Guang's earlobe. He didn't know what kind of faint fragrance was coming out of the collar of her little silk vest and burrowing into Chen Guang's nose. Thanks to Yi Nua's cleaning ante, there was no smell in the bathroom at all. The smell that Chen Guang smelled was pure and free of impurities. But this was even more terrible. Earlier, when he was at the entrance of Tianhe No. 1, he had been attacked by Jin Shuriwe and Jiang Yage from the left and right. Later, he had suppressed his anger with his world-class acting skills. Now that he was being humiliated by Jiang Yage in front of him, how could he remain calm? Jiang Yage's face was also red. She was also shy, but she didn't have the slightest intention of backing down. She had a faint feeling that she didn't have many chances left. If she didn't take advantage of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to grab hold of his weakness and do something that he couldn't struggle against, sooner or later, she would be gradually forgotten by him. It wasn't enough to just rely on her phone to send him some big shots. Feeling the sudden force in her lower abdomen, as if she had been hit by a bull's horn, Jiang Yage's face became even redder. Her eyes gradually became misty, and the hand that was hugging Chen Guang's back slowly moved down. She gently picked up the lower edge of Chen Guang's t-shirt and directly buckled it on his strong back. Chen Guang was scared out of his wits by Jiang Yage's expression at this time. He desperately lowered his voice and said, "Jiang Yage, what are you doing? There are people outside. Calm down. Don't mess around. You're just being impulsive. I'm not worthy of you at all, okay?" Chen Guang's words didn't make Jiang Yage regain the slightest bit of sobriety. She was still greedily reaching up with her hands until she touched Chen Guang's 2 shoulder blades. She exhaled and said, "I've never cared about who's worthy or not. That's not love. That's business. I've never been impulsive. From the moment you saved me, I never thought of any other possibility. You think I'm joking with you, but you don't know how serious I am. I'm not impulsive at all. I'm serious. Yes, there are people outside, so stop struggling and relax. You two-faced guy, aren't you making a lot of noise? As Jiang Yage said that, she used a little force to push her body forward again, and her breathing became even heavier. With his body suddenly being squeezed, Chen Guang's eyes immediately widened. I can't take it anymore. Even with the old man's 1,000 years of cultivation, it seems like he can't withstand this peerless demoness fierce attack. Should I simply enter a world sect to save myself? Although I know this method will definitely work, but I can't bear to do it. The old man is just an ordinary person. He's not a person who can sit still. The person the old man is facing is also not an ordinary person. It's Jiang Yage. She's the national goddess Jiang Yage, who is famous throughout the country and the Asia-Pacific. To be able to endure to this point, the old man is almost a saint. If he had to blame someone, he could only blame Chen Guang for looking at her nude photos in the past. The two of them were still wearing their clothes, but his mind had already started to uncontrollably recall those nude photos that he had seen in the past. Should I struggle for one more second? Don't there's someone. Chen Guang made a final struggle and said in a low voice. Jiang Yage completely ignored him. So don't make a sound. Didn't you just say that I can do whatever I want? If you don't want Bai Hua to know the secret, now immediately kiss me. No. Chen Guang turned his head away. If a person like me lived in ancient times, I would definitely become a legend. I might even be stronger than Liu Xiaohui. If someone hears it, it's over. At this moment, the woman in high heels seemed to have finished peeing. She padded toward the door, opened it, closed it, and disappeared. Chen Guang was dumbfounded. Now that there's no one, you still want to deny it? Imagine if Bai Hua knew that the woman he likes is you. What kind of state would he be in? Jiang Yage was like a female version of the little demon Tyrion, speaking in a seductive and threatening tone. But her hand did not stop stroking Chen Guang's back for even a second. She seemed to want to rub her body into Chen Guang's so that the two of them could fuse into one. Actually, I'm really a cross-dresser. Don't you mind? Chen Guang gradually lost himself. His eyes became more and more hazy, and his voice trembled as he struggled. But his voice also seemed to melt steel, becoming soft. I don't mind. I also like to see you in women's clothes. It's so beautiful. Actually, I already knew it. Do you remember? When we escaped from Disneyland, I've been holding on to the maternity dress you wore. When I have the chance, I'll get you one. I know fashion very well. It'll look better than the clothes you chose this time. Chen Guang felt that Jiang Yage had gone completely crazy. He really wanted to tell Jiang Yage, ask her what she liked about him, and he would change. Deep down, he was intoxicated by his manly instincts, but what was left of his rationality told him that he could not continue developing with Jiang Yage like this. No matter what, he was now Jin Shiyue's boyfriend on the surface, but in the dark, he had slept with Zhu Jingxi. Only God knew if he had really done that with Wenwen. Now there was another Jiang Yage. His body was not stressed at all, but the more he thought about it, the more screwed up he felt. How to suppress Jin Shiyue's matter in the future was already a headache. Adding another Jiang Yage was not just asking for trouble, but jumping into magma. But in the end, he could not say it. Although there were many coincidences in the development of the matter, the final result was that he had used women's clothes to make Bai Hua fall head over heels for him. If Jiang Yage really revealed it, he would not be able to raise his head in public in the future. Lin Jingwei would not be able to explain himself to Bai Hua, and the two of them would probably turn against each other. This was too heavy a responsibility to bear, and the consequences were too serious and scary. With Jiang Yage's personality, Chen Guang did not dare to bet on her being reasonable. Hurry up and kiss me, or I'll get angry. Jiang Yage gave him an ultimatum. Chapter 581. Chen Guang didn't have a choice. The pressure from her body was getting heavier, and the two of them were getting closer and closer. The strength of her fingers on Chen Guang's back was also getting stronger and stronger, to the point that it became a scratch with her fingertips. Chen Guang didn't feel the slightest bit of pain. Instead, he felt an inexplicable intoxication. That's right, in this narrow space, with his back against the toilet tank, feeling Jiang Ye's pressure step by step, Chen Guang's willpower was quickly collapsing. Forget it. What else could he say? He took a deep breath, slowly lowered his head, and slowly kissed Jiang Ye's red lips. Jiang Ye's heart was beating like thunder, her face was red like blood, and she gradually closed her eyes. Success! I finally succeeded. You cold-hearted bastard. Do you really need me to do this to make you succumb? When their lips touched, Jiang Ye was so excited that her whole body trembled as if she had been electrocuted. She was completely intoxicated in this kiss, no longer thinking about the matter that had been bothering her recently. The matter between Sister Shuriwei and him had been completely exposed. Originally, there was a mountain between them, but now there was another mountain. The situation didn't improve because of her continuous attacks. Instead, the distance between her and Chen Guang was getting further and further. Maybe they were getting closer in WeChat, but in reality, they were getting further and further apart. Jiang Ye didn't blame Jean Shuriwei. At that time, Chen Guang was in a bad situation, and Jean Shuriwei had made a huge sacrifice. For things to turn out like this, it could only be said that fate made a fool out of people.
But
Jiang Ye, will never admit defeat. What I want, no one can take away. I won't let anyone. She used more and more force, whether it was her hands, waist, or mouth. Her lilac tongue stretched out like a viper coming out of its hole and fiercely pushed open Chen Guang's teeth that were originally closed together. As for Chen Guang, whether it was his mouth, his chest that was pressed against Jiang Ye's plump chest, his hands that were subconsciously hugging Jiang Ye's back, his body that was as hard as iron, or even the girl's body fragrance that was crazily rushing into his nostrils, all of these things were crazily attacking his manly instinct. In a daze, a divine voice seemed to reverberate in his mind. It was the singing of a holy angel, purifying his filthy and vulgar soul. What awaited him was not life, but heaven. People in the Jianghu would often encounter all sorts of unstoppable forces. At this time, he was facing this irresistible force. Jiang Ye, who was the meat on the chopping board, was too charming. No, Jiang Ye should be the knife that chopped the meat, and he himself was the meat. The blade-like Jiang Ye used her unique youthful charm to ruthlessly tear apart Chen Guang's originally weak resistance. Chen Guang's heart was bleeding, and he silently thought, if there is a next life, I must be a good person, but now I am sorry. His hand that was hugging Jiang Ye's body tightened, and more force. Even before he himself was aware, he unconsciously reached down, and didn't know when he had grabbed Jiang Ye's buttocks. Jiang Ye moaned, and she became even more shy. She took her right hand back and fiercely grabbed Chen Guang's left hand that was playing with her buttocks, and the two of them that were pressed against each other's chests also pulled apart a little.
Huh.
It seems that I am a little too much. Chen Guang suddenly recovered a little and was about to take his right hand back. However, Jiang Ye didn't want to stop him at all, but launched an even more violent counterattack. She actually pressed Chen Guang's left hand to her chest, and her right hand grabbed the back of Chen Guang's left hand and pressed harder, and then her lips came up again. Even though there were 2 layers of clothes between them, the real touch was not discounted at all. The exquisite elasticity burst out, like holding a towel that was soaked in water and kneaded into a ball. Chen Guang would never have thought that Jiang Ye would do this. The intense kiss continued. Chen Guang, who had already let go of all resistance, began to subconsciously clench his right hand's 5 fingers and greedily wanted to occupy the most beautiful fullness in the world. Harder, harder. Jiang Ye suppressed her voice and said softly. As she spoke, her body began to tremble violently again, as if she had been greatly stimulated, but she still suppressed it and did not dare to make a louder sound. This was not her home, but the bathroom of Inua Club. Although it was unlikely that anyone would come in again, the subconscious sense of excitement and tension lingered. Time gradually passed, and a full 5 minutes later, the two's lips were even a little swollen. At this time, Chen Guang's right hand had gone straight under the small vest into Jiang Ye's clothes. Their skin had already touched, and if he took another step forward, it would be a bottomless abyss. After going crazy, Jiang Ye finally gradually recovered. She blushed and withdrew her hand from Chen Guang's back, feeling satisfied. Then, she looked at Chen Guang's lips and suddenly burst out laughing. "You sausage mouth." She smiled mischievously. Chen Guang looked at her angrily. "Aren't you the same?" Jiang Ye exclaimed in a low voice. "Ah, really?" She covered her lips and rubbed them for a moment. "Really?" Looking at her clever and cute look, Chen Guang could not deny that his heart skipped a beat, as if he had been hit in a soft spot. How cute! In any case, he had finally passed the dangerous part. Chen Guang sighed in his heart. He felt excited, but he also secretly rejoiced. Perhaps there were more regrets. "You've been out for too long. Why don't you hurry back? They will look for you, right?" Chen Guang asked tentatively. At this time, Jiang Ye suddenly looked up at him, and she could read a little joy in his eyes. "What? Do you think this is the end of it?" Chen Guang's heart skipped a beat. "Again? You kissed me and touched me. You will take responsibility, right?" Jiang Ye said sinisterly. Chen Guang's face turned pale. He could not refute her. Think about Brother Baihua's face when he finds out that you are the one he likes. Jiang Ye used this trick again, and it was really effective. I lost. What do you want? Tell me, right?" Chen Guang asked dejectedly. Suddenly, Jiang Ye fiercely pulled up her little vest. Her fingers hooked around her chest and continued to pull. Just like that, she opened up her chest and faced Chen Guang. "Now, I want you to look at me." Jiang Ye had an extremely evil and smug smile on her face. Chen Guang looked at her face. Even though he had seen her face in photos many times, this time was different. It suddenly changed from a flat surface to a three-dimensional one. It was even scarier. "Left and right hands, bring them up." Chen Guang accepted his fate. "Now that I have your seal on me, from today onwards, you are mine." Jiang Ye straightened her neck and said fiercely, "If you dare to ignore me again, I will die with you." After saying that, she suddenly took out her cell phone and pointed the camera at her chest, taking pictures of Chen Guang's hand and her chest. Then she turned around and took pictures of both their faces. "You are not allowed to ignore me in the future. I will take pictures of everything." Chen Guang's eyes widened. He never thought that this would be the end. One of his weaknesses was still in her hands, and in the blink of an eye, another one was in her hands. Just then, Jiang Ye's cell phone rang. It was Jin Shuriwa. "Song Ye, where have you been? It's been so long. Asked someone to look for you at the front desk just now, but I didn't see you." Jiang Ye raised her hand and pressed Chen Guang's hand again. She looked straight into his eyes and said, "Sister Shuriwa, my stomach is a little uncomfortable. I am in the toilet outside. I will be back soon." "Oh, if you are uncomfortable, can we go back early?" Jin Shuriwa asked with concern. Jiang Ye's left hand was still exerting force. "It doesn't matter. I will be fine after squatting in the toilet." After hanging up the phone, she let go of her hand, then slowly tidied up her clothes and smiled at Chen Guang. "I am really serious. Don't think that I am joking." She turned around, went out, and left. Her movements were smooth. She felt refreshed and satisfied. Only Chen Guang was left sitting on the toilet alone, silently thinking about hitting Yiling. "Hello, is it Yiling? Someone has been set up here. Now the situation is out of control. Can you come and save me? What exactly does she like about me?" Chen Guang shook his head. "I don't understand. I really don't understand." In fact, Jiang Ye didn't understand either, but she felt that if she really had to find a reason for these things, it wouldn't be called like or love. Perhaps it was because of his handsomeness, or perhaps it was because he had saved her life, or perhaps it was because he looked very cute when he acted in Tears Never End on the set, Or perhaps it was because of the manliness he showed when he escaped with the two of them at Disney. Or perhaps it was because of the joy he showed when he changed into maternity clothes for the first time in the car. Or perhaps it was because of his unparalleled handsomeness when he played the piano on stage. After all, Jiang Yage had secretly watched the video at least 10 times, but every time she watched it, her eyes were filled with little stars. This was fate, but also a sin. Who would know if they didn't walk to the end? Unlike animals, humans were always creatures dominated by extremely complicated emotions, weren't they? Dragging his tired body, Chen Guang carefully moved out of the women's toilet, then quickly walked out of Inua with his head down. He took a taxi and went directly to the military guest house. Xianming had sent his luggage there earlier. Sitting in the car, Chen Guang hesitated for a long time, but then he sent a WeChat message to Jin Shiyue. Tonight, I met your grandfather when I had dinner with Bai Hua and Lin Jingwei. He seems to like me very much. Let's find a suitable time to confess to him. Thank you for taking care of me these days, but it's really unfair for you to continue like this. Chen Guang felt a little tired. Sitting quietly in the hotel room, he didn't even have the interest to read the script of Women because he had already memorized it. With his current acting skills, it wasn't difficult for him to act in this movie. Forget it, don't think about these messy things anymore. I still have a lot of trouble on my hands. In the end, the hidden story behind the hot pot poisoning case and the possible life and death crisis that one might face were more important. He finally put his thoughts away. The current source of faith value wasn't enough, and it wasn't coming fast enough. The production capacity of the Dark Cup had reached its peak. It was time to think about how to increase the production capacity of the other Dark Cup realms. The next morning, he was woken up by Wu Tong's phone call. Wu Tong only said one sentence to make him completely awake. I finished the task and came back. The family that you asked me to investigate a few days ago died on the way back to Lilai County from Wujing last night. Chapter 582. About half an hour later, Chen Guang appeared at the Yanjing Police Department, where Wu Tong had been waiting for him for a long time. In fact, as soon as he left the military guest house, he was picked up by someone who was a police officer from Yanjing. Wu Tong called him because she didn't want Chen Guang to have any misunderstandings with these people, so she just gave him a heads up in advance. It was also a coincidence that the one with the highest rank among the 3 police cars that came to pick him up happened to be one of the trainees he had previously trained and shunned. Although the captain of the Special Police Force, who was nearly 30 years old, was not lucky enough to master the unique skill of darts, he still admired Chen Guang quite a bit. In advance, he briefly explained the cause and effect of the matter to Chen Guang. In fact, the family returned to Wujing 2 days ago, but their behavior was very abnormal. After getting off the plane in Wujing, the family of 3 took a taxi from the airport to the city and then began to hide like headless flies, as if they were aware that a crisis was approaching. They didn't dare to stay in a hotel, nor did they dare to take a car back to Lilai County, and even turned off their mobile phones. If it weren't for the Skynet system that would capture the characteristics of the family of 3 from time to time, their secretive whereabouts would even make people think that they had disappeared from the world. Then, from yesterday afternoon until evening, the Skynet system could no longer capture their whereabouts until the car they were in had a serious accident on the highway and their bodies were found. The car was also very strange. The driver was a good friend of the male owner of the family. Yesterday morning, he set off from Lilai County and went straight to Wujing without any warning. According to the driver's wife, who cooperated with the investigation overnight, last night, her husband chatted with his old friend on WeChat on his mobile phone and suddenly left the house early the next morning. However, in the WeChat of the deceased driver, the Dechuan police did not find any chat records. It was clear that after chatting with the male owner of the victim's family last night, he took the initiative to delete all the chat records. In addition, according to the driving recorder of a witness who happened to follow the car on the highway, the car was originally driving smoothly, but not long after passing through the Fengquanshan tunnel on the highway, it suddenly lost control. It snaked for a long distance on the road, but not only did it not slow down, it kept speeding up until it hit the divider at a speed of more than 150 kilometers per hour on a road with a speed limit of 100 kilometers per hour and broke into pieces. They hid in Wujing, not daring to go to any hotel or internet cafe that required real name registration. They didn't even dare to make phone calls or take a bus. They only dared to try contacting their friends on WeChat and immediately delete their voice chat records. Even when passing through highway toll booths and locations with surveillance cameras, the family of 3 all lowered their heads, afraid of being photographed. But in the end, they still couldn't escape. Something must have happened in the Fengquan mountain tunnel, but there was no sign of it even on the car's dashcam. All these signs combined showed that the victim's family had a premonition that someone wanted their lives, and after struggling for a while, they still died. This tragic car accident that killed 4 people at the same time was not a coincidence. The strange car accident that killed 4 people attracted the attention of the Dechuan police. After a thorough investigation, they unknowingly pushed the relationship of the family of 3 to Chen Guang's family. After all, not long ago, Chen Guoli settled a huge compensation of 800,000 yuan with them, and there was a potential dispute. The more important evidence came from Chen Guang, who was in Yanjing. He had previously used the internal channels of the police department to find out the location of the victim's family and left some clues. In addition, he quickly moved into the room next to the victim's family, and he left quickly without waiting for dawn the next day. Although nothing happened at the time, what Chen Guang did leave a major suspicion, because not long after that day, the family began to behave extremely strangely. So, the Dechuan police asked me to cooperate with the investigation? They actually want to arrest me? Chen Guang, who was sitting in the back seat, asked. The captain sitting next to him hesitated for 2 seconds and said, "It's not an arrest. In fact, Instructor Chen, you're not very suspicious. Before we find more substantial evidence, everything stays at the level of speculation. There is no strong evidence to directly prove that Instructor Chen was involved in the car accident. Then why did they send someone to pick me up so early in the morning? And it's an elite captain like you? And they even let Wu Tong greet me before picking me up? Are they afraid that I will fight with you?" Chen Guang asked with a meaningful smile. The captain whispered, "There are other reasons, but I can't say more. Instructor Chen, please don't make it difficult for me." "Special Affairs Bureau?" Chen Guang suddenly asked without thinking. The captain's expression froze, but he quickly waved his hand. "I didn't say anything. All right, as long as I understand. Thank you." Chen Guang did not make things difficult for the captain. He tilted his head and leaned against the back of the back seat, deep in thought. He did not expect that the family would die. He had thought that the forces behind the hot pot poisoning case might constantly test him and take some measures. They might send people to threaten him, or they might find people who might know something about the case and warn them. As for his family, who should have been the most worried, he did not need to worry too much because of Wenwen's repeated assurances. In the end, he guessed all wrong. Those people were crazier and more ruthless than he had imagined. Perhaps because of his relationship with Wenwen or his relationship with the authorities in Huaxia, he and his family were restrained from taking action. However, the family of 3, who were coincidentally involved in this case, were wiped out without hesitation. He was not worried that he would be convicted. Even if he was indeed a major suspect because of the previous incident, suspicion was just suspicion. They could not have any conclusive evidence, and he did not do it in the first place. For Wu Tong to call in advance, it was obvious that the higher-ups had reached some kind of tacit understanding. Today's trip was only to give an explanation to the Dechuan province police. In a sense, it was an explanation to Wushan. However, these were all side details. What really chilled Chen Guang's heart was the methods of those people. Before today, he had thought that the forces of inner strength might only regard themselves as ordinary people with unique skills. However, through this incident, Chen Guang became clear-headed. Those who had achieved success in practicing inner strength did not care about the lives of ordinary people from the bottom of their hearts. They simply treated ordinary people like livestock. Not all martial artists were like this, but the group of martial artists who opposed him and Wenwen must be like this. Wu Tong was standing at the gate waiting anxiously. Chen Guang was suddenly involved in such a big matter. She was originally going to return to Wu Jing today, but the call from Wu Shan last night changed her itinerary. 4 lives were not a trivial matter, but the implications were extremely important. Now, the only person who could make Chen Guang behave and be willing to negotiate with the Special Bureau was probably Wu Tong. When Chen Guang saw Wu Tong again, he found that she was thinner and darker than before. Obviously, the special task she was carrying out these days was not easy. Tsung Yongtai was standing next to Wu Tong. When Chen Guang saw him, he immediately understood that his guess was right. "Let's go inside and talk." Wu Tong came up to him. In front of outsiders, she did not appear to be too intimate. Nodding his head, Chen Guang was about to enter. Tsung Yongtai suddenly flashed from the side and took out a pair of handcuffs from his hand. He cursed at the captain who got out of the car with Chen Guang. "The criminal suspect is not handcuffed? Is this how you do things?" Chen Guang turned slightly. "Bureau Chief Tsung, you are not a police officer. You don't have to overstep your authority, right? Besides, which eye of yours saw me as a suspect? I'm only here to cooperate with the investigation, and do you want to convict me with just your mouth? Who gave you the right to do so?" Tsung Yongtai was not going to let it go. "You used your police connections to investigate the victim's whereabouts and stayed in the room next to the victims on the same day. Isn't that evidence?" Chen Guang grinned. "We are all smart people. I know what you want, so don't pretend to be confused. If there is a hidden story behind the murder of the family, you should know better than me who is related to it. Let me remind you, it's best not to complicate matters. When were they killed? When did I investigate them? No matter how much you guess, it's useless. There's not enough evidence." As he said that, he simply raised his hands in front of Tsung Yongtai. "I know you want to show me who is boss and negotiate with me later. Why don't you try handcuffing me? I'll put my hands here. Why don't you try handcuffing me?" In the end, when he really put his hands in front of him, Tsung Yongtai tried to pick up the handcuffs twice, but he put them back. He didn't dare. Wu Tong personally sent Chen Guang to the interrogation room of the Yanjing Police Department. The questions were still the same, such as his name, place of origin, why he came to Yanjing, and what time period he was in Yanjing. There wasn't anything shameful about Chen Guang. Aside from the matter of him getting a room with Wenwen, which he described as him wandering around in boredom, Chen Guang explained everything in detail. When he took a glance, he realized that when this person was taking the statement, he wrote that his whereabouts were unknown from the time he first left Shun's special training camp until now. After thinking about it for a while, Chen Guang understood that Tsung Yongtai and the Yanjing Police Department must have done something. Tsung Yongtai wanted to make him a scapegoat. Things became interesting all of a sudden. It was impossible for Tsung Yongtai not to know his relationship with the elders. In any case, he still had the identity of Jin Shiyue's boyfriend. He actually dared to do something so brazenly? Tsung Yongtai was a bit too bold. "All right, we'll stop recording your statement here. You're not allowed to leave before we get to the bottom of your background. Xiaoyang, take him to the detention room." The Yanjing police officer in charge of interrogating him seemed to have a high rank. After the interrogation, he closed the notebook and was about to leave. He didn't talk nonsense with Chen Guang and just greeted another police officer. Chen Guang wasn't in a hurry to make things difficult for him. He was suddenly involved in such a big matter, and he was in Yanjing. It was impossible for no one to inform Jin Shiyue. If he was right, the special police captain who came to pick him up should have already made a call. When he got out of the car just now, that person's eyes were very meaningful. After walking out of the interrogation room, Wu Tong came over and said, "Let's talk together." The Yanjing police officer originally wanted to separate Wu Tong and Chen Guang, but when he saw Tsung Yongtai standing next to them with a cold face, he didn't say anything. This detention room was obviously prepared for Chen Guang alone. It had good ventilation, bright lighting, and a clean single bed. It was better than the general hotel's equipment, but the strong iron door made people feel uncomfortable. Chen Guang sat on the bed, and Wu Tong also sat next to him. Chen Guang looked up at Tsung Yongtai and said, "Bureau Chief Tsung, what do you want to talk about? Let's talk." At this moment, Wu Tong's phone rang. She got up and picked up the phone. After a few words, her face changed. After hanging up the phone, Chen Guang and Xing Yongtai asked at the same time, "What happened to Dechuan again?" Wu Tong first looked at Xing Yongtai as if she didn't want to talk to him, but she felt that she couldn't hide it from him, so she said directly, "I just received news that 6 families involved in the Chen family's hot pot poisoning case died mysteriously, a total of 22 people. Some of them woke up with gas poisoning, and there was also a family who suddenly fell to the ground when they went out for a morning jog. There was also a family who was poisoned while eating breakfast at a noodle shop. The cause of death was very strange, and there were no signs." Chen Guang stood up, and his body was cold. In his memory, including the Yanjing family, there were a total of 7 families who showed the most severe signs of food poisoning at the hot pot restaurant, and the compensation was also the largest. There was no doubt that there was someone behind the scenes behind these 7 families. Not only did the person behind the scenes kill the family of 3 that he had been in contact with, but he also didn't let any of the other 6 families go. 25 lives were gone just like that. He really didn't expect these people to be so ruthless. Xing Yongtai took a deep breath and looked outside through the iron fence. He looked at Chen Guang with a complicated expression and said slowly, "I reminded you long ago to stop. Are you happy now? Are you satisfied? Are you happy now?" Although Wu Tong didn't know what had happened, Wu Shan's original words to her were to find a way to persuade Chen Guang not to let him have a conflict with the people from the Special Affairs Bureau. The whole thing, whether it was the Dechuan police or the Yanjing police, was full of strangeness and strangeness. But among the 3 people in the room, Chen Guang and Xing Yongtai were well aware of it. From her tone, "It seems like it's my fault." Chen Guang also looked at Xing Yongtai, not to be outdone. "Isn't this ridiculous? They were the ones who killed the people, and I'm the one at fault." Xing Yongtai said angrily, "If it weren't for your pointless questioning, these people wouldn't have died." Chen Guang also roared angrily, "This is ridiculous. A life for a life. My family and I were wronged, but no one helped me. No one helped me complain. I wanted to find out the truth myself. It's only right and proper. Don't put the cart before the horse. They were the ones who treated human lives like grass, not me, Chen Guang. You're the director of the Special Affairs Bureau, and you're doing your job, but now you want to put the blame on me? What position are you sitting on? Who are you working for?" Xing Yongtai glared at Chen Guang. "I'm working for ordinary people. I know how terrifying they are, so I have to stop you. You didn't kill them, but they died because of you. You just wait and see. If you continue to be stubborn, this is just the beginning. Soon, there will be more serious consequences, and you will pay a price you can't bear." Chen Guang was so angry that he laughed. "I thought you were a dog raised by those people, and now I'm right. It's because of the existence of people like you that those so-called top people can be so unscrupulous. I just wanted to dig up their background a little, and they killed people as they pleased. After killing people, they have people like you to clean up after them. Now, another 25 people have died. You know who the murderer is, but you don't want to uphold justice. Instead, you want me to stop? Putting aside my personal matters, these 25 people died in vain? I admit that this matter might have something to do with me, so I can't just stand by and watch. Of course, this matter isn't over and there will be more serious consequences, but those people should pay the price." Chen Guang gradually calmed down. Did he really not have a trace of regret in his heart? However, he had seen far too many deaths in the sea of time, and he was no longer that melancholic and sentimental person of the past. He admitted that he was responsible for the sudden turn of events this time. Because of the existence of kind-hearted martial artists like Wenwen and Xianqin, and because his family was only framed and not exterminated, he thought that those people at least had a bottom line. He underestimated their insanity and too casually spied on them, which led to this sudden and bitter outcome. Now he understood that those people had only framed his family because they had some scruples. Now they had not done anything to his family because they were also scruples. But for the same reason, as long as it was used on people without any background, they would have no bottom line because they did not have to pay any price. And all these years, it was people like Tseng Yongtai who stood in front of him, who gave them the belief that they could kill people at will without paying any price. No matter what they did, the Special Affairs Bureau, represented by Tseng Yongtai, was playing the role of an accomplice. Chen Guang did not intend to shirk his responsibility, but he also did not intend to make any concessions with Tseng Yongtai. Since they felt that they could do whatever they wanted without paying any price, then he would make them pay the price. I am at fault in this matter, and I must personally make up for this mistake. The dead cannot be resurrected, but I must at least avenge them. As for these families who had helped the people behind the scenes to put pressure on the Chen family and financially ruin the Chen family, Chen Guang felt that they were at fault, but they did not deserve to die. But now they were dead, and the price was too heavy. They were not flawed NPCs in the Sea of Time, but real people in the world he lived in. Chen Guang was not a person with a strong sense of justice, but this matter had completely dragged him into it. Whether it was for himself or for others, he could not stand by and watch. What a joke! You don't understand how scary they are. Don't think that just because you know how to throw a few darts, you are just an ant compared to them. What right do you have to make them pay the price? You don't know how much effort we put in, how much humiliation we endured to gradually stabilize the situation today. Are you going to ruin the years of hard work of the entire Special Bureau for your own selfishness? When Tseng Yongtai heard him say that he wanted to make internal strength martial artists pay the price, he was so angry that he almost laughed. Chen Guang looked straight at him. It is my fault, I will take it, but Tseng Yongtai, you guys are not innocent either. Don't try to use your so-called hard work to blackmail me. I look down on people like you from the bottom of my heart.
No, dogs like you.
If you're really doing this for the so-called ordinary people, then why did you not hesitate to put all the blame on us, a family like us, in the first place? I believe that my family is not an exception. Who knows how many people in the country are like my family? Forget it, don't answer me.
Let me tell you why.
It is because deep in your bones, you feel that martial artists are a cut above ordinary people. As long as ordinary people accidentally get involved in the fight between internal strength martial artists, no matter if it is passive or active, the ordinary people will always be in the wrong, and the martial artists will always be in the right, understand? You have turned yourself into their dogs. Tseng Yongtai found that he could not argue with him. He only pointed a trembling finger at Chen Guang. You will regret it. You will definitely regret it. Chen Guang shook his head. If I stop now, I will regret it for the rest of my life. Say it, they must have something for you to tell me and then you can leave. Tseng Yongtai's expression froze. After a while, he said indifferently, that's right. They told me to tell you that this is just a greeting. If you continue to pester them, they'll target your friends, your classmates, and your relatives next time. Although they are a little afraid of you now, if you do not know what is good for you and want a foot after an inch, then don't blame them. Okay, then go back and tell them. This matter ends here, Chen Guang said suddenly. Tseng Yongtai was stunned. He obviously did not believe Chen Guang's words. He was puzzled. He was just scolding him. Why did this guy suddenly change his mind? See, I agreed, but you didn't believe me. You passed the message, but they didn't believe me either. In fact, what we said is nonsense, isn't it? Get lost, you are useless as a dog. Chen Guang waved his hand, ordering him to leave. Tseng Yongtai was furious, but in the end, he endured it, snorted coldly, opened the door and walked out. When Tseng Yongtai went out, he said loudly to the Yanjing police chief who had been waiting outside, find any reason to lock him up for at least 10 years. Don't let him go out and cause trouble. It will be good for everyone. Chen Guang sneered. Tseng Yongtai's words were purely bluffing. He was just venting his anger after being scolded by him. Officer Wu, why are you not leaving? A Yanjing police officer came in and looked around. Wu Tong's heart was filled with dark clouds at this time. There were so many doubts. How could she be willing to leave? I need to communicate with my client. Officer Wu, I am afraid this matter is not within the scope of your position. The man did not listen to her and left. Wu Tong stood up, took out another certificate from her pocket. I forgot to tell you, I just passed the graduation exam of Shun Special Training Camp. This is my special examination certificate. I now have a special position. I have the power to ask about the major cases nationwide. The man was shocked at first, then he pouted and left, closing the door again. Wu Tong quickly sat down and grabbed Chen Guang's hand. What is going on? I was the one who answered the phone. My dad also told me a lot, but why do I feel like I am the only one kept in the dark? Chen Guang looked at her, patted the back of his sister's hand. It is a small matter. As long as it is not the end of the world, it is not a big deal. Don't worry about it. Just like Wenwen did not want to tell him too many secrets of the internal force martial artist to protect him, at this time, Chen Guang had the same attitude towards Wu Tong. The less she knew, the better. Chapter 583. Wu Tong obviously didn't believe his words. Her almond-shaped eyes widened. Tell me the truth. What the hell is going on? 25 people died in one night. This is such a big case. Don't play dumb with me. Chen Guang felt a headache coming on. He even blamed Wu Shan in his heart for letting Wu Tong get involved in this matter. She didn't play any role at all. She didn't know what Wu Shan was thinking. In fact, Chen Guang completely misunderstood Wu Shan. Wu Shan didn't know that this matter involved an inner force martial artist. It was just that he had been shocked by the explosive news that had suddenly been reported all the way from below. An ordinary case of 4 casualties naturally wouldn't be reported to him, but if the matter involved the well-known grandson-in-law of the Jin family, the importance of the matter would be raised to another level. However, Wu Shan knew that Chen Guang and Jin Shirui were pretending to have a relationship. He had asked Wu Tong about this before. Then, Wu Shan knew that his daughter's relationship with Chen Guang wasn't ordinary. Chen Guang also saved Wu Tong's life. After analyzing the case, Wu Shan deduced from his experience that Chen Guang would definitely be acquitted and released. After all, this matter was just speculation. Wu Shan didn't believe that Chen Guang was the murderer. Perhaps he did have some purpose in finding that family through the police system, but it was impossible for him to kill them. Wu Shan, who had once tried Su Lijing with Chen Guang, didn't believe that Chen Guang was a person who disregarded human life. In his impression, although Chen Guang wasn't blindly righteous, he was extremely principled. He didn't lack money now, so it was impossible for him to kill people for a mere 800,000 yuan. Of course, this didn't mean that Wu Shan had completely lost his principles. He didn't think too much about it. He only told Wu Tong to communicate with Chen Guang and get him to cooperate with the investigation. He also told Wu Tong not to have any conflict with Beijing's officers. After all, Wu Shan knew that Chen Guang was powerful and had a violent temper. What if he killed a police officer in Beijing with a single punch? That would be a huge problem. As soon as Wu Tong arrived, she directly bumped into Tsing Yongtai from the Special Bureau. Although Wu Tong wasn't very clear about the Special Bureau's background, Tsing Yongtai seemed to have a lot of authority in the Yanjing Police Department. The leader of the Yanjing Bureau did make it clear to Wu Tong that this matter was ultimately decided by Director Tseng. Wu Tong, as the temporary contact person appointed by the Dachuan Provincial Office, after a brief communication with Tsing Yongtai, because she could make Chen Guang behave. Tsing Yongtai was also happy to see her communicate with Chen Guang. Wu Tong had always thought that her job was to make Chen Guang and Tsing Yongtai cooperate. But when she really listened to Chen Guang and Tsing Yongtai's conversation and received a phone call in between, and the death toll rose from 3 to 25, she realized that this matter wasn't as simple as it seemed. Although each case seemed to be an independent individual, there were all sorts of coincidences. Until now, they hadn't even found the motive and method of the murderer. But it was precisely because the sudden deaths of these 7 families were particularly strange. According to past case handling experience, it could indeed be regarded as a unified major case and filed first. If there were any other secrets, they could also be separated in the process of investigation. It's really nothing. I can't explain it to you. Chen Guang was having a headache from Wu Tong's interrogation. What do you mean you can't explain it to me? I've always felt that the matter of your family's hot pot restaurant wasn't simple, but I really couldn't find any details. What kind of people did you investigate behind my back? Aren't you afraid of death? As Wu Tong chatted with him, she managed to straighten out her thoughts. Did those people want to hide the truth, so they directly cut off the loose ends? Chen Guang was still shaking his head and lying through his teeth. Although he knew that he couldn't fool Wu Tong couldn't do anything about it if he refused to admit it. Wu Tong looked at him angrily. She wanted to strangle this guy. I'm the police. Why are you trying to show off? Do you think this is still a child's house? 25 lives. It's only you that I can calmly ask you here. If it were another suspect in such a case, I would first beat you half to death before asking you. At this moment, the door of the detention room was suddenly opened. Yan Ingjian, the person in charge of the Beijing bureau, stood outside the door with a straight face. Officer Wu, come out. Chen Guang is involved in a major case and is now a criminal suspect. Even if you know him, you still have to pay attention to the disciplinary issues. Wu Tong stood up. From a legal point of view, Chen Guang was indeed a major suspect, but from an emotional point of view, she was extremely disgusted with Yan Ingjian's words. Director Yan, it's true that he is a suspect, but as a special class police officer who graduated from Shun's special training camp, I'm also the contact person for Dechuan. I'm qualified to participate in the case. Wu Tong only hesitated for 5 seconds. She no longer asked Chen Guang, but chose to confront Yan Ingjian. Yan Ingjian obviously didn't expect Wu Tong to choose to fight him head-on. His face turned cold. Wu Tong, since you're a junior and I've been good friends with your father for many years, I'll give you a piece of advice. You'd better not get involved in this case. The consequences are more serious than you think. Wu Tong frowned even more. Although the investigation of Chen Guang had just begun, and there was no strong evidence, the situation seemed to have taken a sharp turn after Chen Guang and Director Zeng of the Special Bureau broke down. This director, Yan, seemed to be targeting Chen Guang. His words implied that he wanted to make Chen Guang's case a reality. Yan Ingjian saw Wu Tong frown and stopped talking. He thought she was afraid, so he turned his head and said, Xiao Yuntai, you and Xiao Yang take Chen Guang to the interrogation room. I will ask him personally. Wu Tong woke up with a start and shouted, Stop. She opened her arms in front of Chen Guang, like an angry hen trying to protect her child in front of an eagle. Xiao Yuntai and Xiao Yang froze in place. They were at a loss. They couldn't afford to offend Wu Tong. They looked at Yan Ingjian for help. In this case, only the director could do it. Wu Tong, you'd better think about your identity. You are a police officer. Your father got you here to help us investigate Chen Guang, not to cause trouble. You won't be able to help us in your current state, and you'll only be harming yourself and your father. Yan Ingjian also felt a headache. At this time, Chen Guang stood up and held Wu Tong's waist from behind. He pushed her aside and said, It's okay. Let them interrogate him. Wu Tong looked back at him. Are you crazy? They're obviously trying to frame you. Yan Ingjian couldn't stop coughing. Although Wu Tong was not a police officer in Yanjing, she was still their colleague. Although he did intend to do so, it was too embarrassing for Wu Tong to say it in front of him. Wu Tong, don't slander me. When we encounter such a major case, we will be more cautious and strict in handling it. You are also a police officer. You have to be responsible for your own words. Wu Tong waved her hand. How am I irresponsible? All right. Don't talk anymore. Don't make trouble here. Chen Guang pinched Wu Tong's waist without batting an eyelid. He used a lot of force, causing Wu Tong to shrink back halfway through her words. Chen Guang didn't feel guilty, nor did he panic. He wanted to see how this director Yan planned to deal with him. He was no longer the ignorant Wu of the past. He had someone backing him up. It seemed that this director Yan and Xing Yongtai had a good relationship. The two of them should be in the same boat. Let me in. I also have the right to sit in. The group of people turned to the interrogation room. Yan Ingjian wanted to stop Wu Tong outside the door, but she started to make a scene again. All right. You can sit in if you want. Yan Ingjian gritted his teeth and began to curse in his heart. You can use your identity as Wu Shan's daughter to make a scene. If things get out of hand, even your father can't protect you. The Special Affairs Bureau was behind this. Even if Chen Guang was backed by the Jin family couldn't fall out with the Special Affairs Bureau because of him. Xing Yongtai didn't just represent himself. There were people behind him. Chen Guang, be honest. Aside from you, who else are your accomplices? What methods did your accomplices use to harm? Yan Ingjian spoke the moment everyone sat down. Wu Tong interrupted him again. Director Yan, now Qin Guang is only a possible suspect. I think there is something wrong with your interrogation method. Yan Ingjian finally got angry. He slammed the table and stood up. Wu Tong, are you done? Get out of here. Qin Guang, who was sitting in the chair, was as steady as a mountain. He coughed and said, "It's strange. When did the police station become a place to compete for the loudest voice?" Shut up. Yan Ingjian didn't say anything. Instead, it was Wu Tong who told Qin Guang to shut up. Wu Tong's idea was very simple. At this time, the more Qin Guang said, the more mistakes he made. It might be used by the cunning Yan Ingjian to make a fuss. However, Qin Guang paid no attention to him and replied, "Bureau Chief Yan, I have a question. I've been participating in the training in Shund, and I haven't contacted anyone. I even stayed in the military's guest house last night. I believe that it won't be hard for you to check my phone records. I have an alibi, so on what basis are you saying that I'm the mastermind? Did you guess it with your toes?" Yan Ingjian looked at the prepared confession in his hand. He didn't intend to give Qin Guang any chance to speak. "That's not what you said in the first confession. Xiao Yuntai, transfer him to the detention center and formally detain him." After that, he was about to kick him out. He didn't care about Qin Guang's so-called alibi at all. He didn't think that he needed to care about anything since he had the imperial sword given by Tsung Yongtai. Although this might offend the Jin family, so what? At least he wouldn't die, right? If he succeeded in getting in touch with those people through the special bureau, the Jin family might not dare to do anything to him. He was just a grandson-in-law. If he died, he could find another one. He wasn't that important to the Jin family. As for this person's identity as an instructor in the Shund special training area, it might indeed be a potential trouble. However, this matter was proposed by the special bureau. Tsung Yongtai had said that he would take full responsibility for everything. In addition, Yan Ingjian's order wasn't to kill Qin Guang, but to lock him up for 37 days and then let him go. Perhaps he didn't want to provoke Qin Guang to resist too fiercely, so he quietly moved his head closer and whispered, "Qin Guang, I know that you will definitely be acquitted in the end, but I also have my own difficulties. Please understand me. I guarantee that I'll get someone to serve you well in the detention center. You can even surf the internet. You can do whatever you want in there. You just have to stay for 37 days. You just have to cooperate. This is good for everyone." Wu Tong wanted to come closer, but she was blocked by a few other Yanjing personnel who had been called in to form a human wall. Listening to Yan Ingjian's whispers, Qin Guang raised his eyebrows. Sure enough, Tsung Yongtai's roar was nothing more than a warning to him, hoping that he would back off. If he wasn't in a hurry to collect faith points, it wouldn't matter if he was locked up for 37 days. However, he really couldn't afford to waste time now. One had to rely on her own strength to face the two major sects, Poison Sect and Dark Sect. Perhaps there was someone behind the hot pot poisoning case. Every day he wasted, he would be more worried. He grinned again. "Director Yan, it seems that you're also a sensible person. Why don't you help me pass a message to Director Tseng, who hasn't gone far? I won't investigate this matter anymore. I really won't investigate it anymore. It's meaningless for me to waste time in the detention center. I'll save my energy. After I get out, I'll do what I need to do with you guys. Everyone can pretend that nothing happened. If you insist on using such petty tricks to waste my time, I'm afraid that you'll be the one in trouble instead of me." Yan Ingjian was threatened by Qin Guang. He glared at him. "Do you really think that I'm afraid of you? Do you really think that I'm afraid of old Master Jin? You haven't even married into the family yet, and you're already putting on airs?" Yan Ingjian didn't believe that the Jin family would care that much about Qin Guang, their grandson-in-law. Moreover, the Jin family wouldn't want to completely fall out with the forces behind the Special Affairs Bureau, right? At this moment, there was a commotion in the hall outside. In just 10 to 20 seconds, a middle-aged man appeared at the door of the interrogation room. Yan Ingjian propped himself up and was stunned. It was Secretary Chu Zhaowei, who had been popular for the past 2 years. Why was he here? Behind Secretary Chu, an old man in military uniform appeared. It was Old Tan. Yan Ingjian was even more flustered. Am I blind? Why is General Tan here in person? Is Chen Guang that important as the chief instructor of Shun's special training camp? That's impossible. Isn't his title of chief instructor something the Jin family used to gild him? What's there to teach a lousy dart? Isn't this a laughingstock? Poor Yan Ingjian was fooled by Tsing Yongtai. Although there were people in the Yanjing police station who had participated in Chen Guang's special training, according to the confidentiality regulations of Shun's special training camp, even he, the director of the Yanjing police station, didn't know the specific content of the special training camp, so he couldn't ask. He only took Tsing Yongtai's words as the golden rule. In Tsing Yongtai's description, the so-called chief instructor of Chen Guang didn't carry any weight. Yan Ingjian? Who allowed you to arrest Chen Guang? What's wrong with your brain after being a policeman for so many years? Where's the evidence? Where's your evidence? Old Tan took the lead and walked forward. Although he didn't bring a single soldier with him, he alone was equivalent to thousands of troops and horses. Chu Xiaowei, who was next to him, was also livid. He held a document in black and white with a stamp, as well as a photo. Director Yan, take a look at this document first, Chu Xiaowei said. Yan Ingjian took a look and found that the document was a commendation letter. It was a commendation letter for Chen Guang's outstanding contribution in Shun's special training camp. It clearly stated everything from when he entered Shun's special training camp to when he left. This meant that the entire Shun's special training camp was helping Chen Guang make up an alibi for the past few days. In addition, this photo made his head even more swollen. It turned out that Chen Guang was drinking with the three old men, Jin Jiangtan, and a group of second and third generations at the youth hall. At this time yesterday, Chen Guang was also eating with the leaders at Baoshan restaurant. Also, this is the call records of Chen Guang during this period that I got from the communications department. This USB flash drive contains the surveillance videos of Chen Guang staying in several hotels after living next door to that family. Which one of your eyes found evidence of Chen Guang's involvement in the case? Chu Xiaowei was usually very kind, but this time he was ordered to come, and he was really angry. Yan Ingjian was questioned again and again, and he had a guilty conscience. He rolled his eyes. But there was a day when Chen Guang's whereabouts were unknown. He was talking about the day when Chen Guang and Wen hung out together. Chen Guang's whereabouts that day were indeed not recorded. Tsing Yongtai also didn't know when he flashed out. Things had gotten to this point, and if he didn't come out to help poor Yan Ingjian, he wouldn't be able to hold on much longer. Greetings, General Tan. Greetings, Secretary Chu. The two turned to look at Tsing Yongtai. General Tan frowned. Director Tsing, what are you doing here? Tsing Yongtai decided to go straight to the point. He first signaled with his eyes to let the irrelevant people leave. Soon, only Chen Guang, Wu Tong, Yan Ingjian, and Chu Tan were left in the room. I'll be straightforward. The big shots from the Poison Sect and Dark Clan wanted me to knock some sense into Chen Guang. As for who Chen Guang was with that day, I'll help him explain it. General Tan should know about it. The bloody battle in Feng Town was between the Wen clan's Missy and the Wen clan's third master. Chen Guang can be considered as Missy, Wen's man. Now that third master Wen is dead, I can say something about it. Third master Wen is from the Poison Sect and Dark Clan. Before that day, Chen Guang was indeed with Missy Wen. This so-called murder case was also an attempt by the Poison Sect and Dark Clan to make Chen Guang behave. Now that Missy Wen and the two big sects are at loggerheads, why should small fry like us get involved in a fight between the gods? We'll just go along with their wishes and settle the matter. Isn't that a happy ending? When Tsing Yongtai said this, there was a hint of pride and nonchalance in his tone. Old man Tan's lips trembled in anger. He wanted to scold Tsing Yongtai, but no words came out of his mouth. Chu Xiaowei understood the terrifying meaning behind Tsing Yongtai's words. This matter was about to go beyond his authority. As for Chen Guang, although he had already guessed that the Poison Sect and Dark Clan were the real culprits behind the hot pot incident, he did not expect Tsing Yongtai to admit it so directly and generously. He did it in front of Wu Tong, Old Man Tan, Chu Xiaowei, and Yan Ingjian. He was obviously saying, if I want to do something, you guys have to kneel and listen to my orders. Sung Yongtai's so-called fight between the gods even included small fry like Old Man Tan and Chu Xiaowei. Obviously, in his heart, other than inner force martial artists, everyone else was a small fry. Only inner force martial artists were his masters. It was a simple sentence, but he admitted to a lot of things. In fact, there were signs of this long ago, but everyone turned a blind eye in the past. However, Chen Guang, who had a special identity and was caught in the middle, became the fuse and once again brought this matter that no one was willing to think about to the surface. Sung Yongtai's actions were the same as many years ago. He revealed his trump card. He looked like he had already become a servant serving inner force martial artists. What could they do to him? General Tan's lips finally trembled.
Sung Yongtai, oh Sung Yongtai, we've put so much hope in you.
Is this how the Special Affairs Bureau has been doing things all these years? We've been taking care of you, but you've become their dogs? Sung Yongtai had lost count of how many times he had been called a dog today, but he was resistant and did not feel ashamed at all. General Tan, a wise man submits to circumstances. You were the ones who taught me this. If you hadn't adapted to circumstances back then, why would there be a department like the Special Affairs Bureau? Don't you think so? But we want you to spy on them, not to serve them, Chu Xiaowei said angrily. Sung Yongtai, who had finally shed all pretense of cordiality, no longer hid his insolence. He said coldly, "It's useless for you to say that to me. You have to say it to our chief, Ouyang. I'm just a servant following orders. Go to hell with your pretentious act." Sung Yongtai was still feeling smug when Chen Guang suddenly punched him in the face. "I've been annoyed with you for a long time. I'm not playing anymore. Go tell your chief, Ouyang, to swell up. I want to see how swollen he is. I'm leaving today. Let the Poison Clan and Dark Clan come and kill me. You only know how to talk tough. If you really wanted to kill me, you would have done it 800 years ago. Who would be in the mood to waste time with you? Stop pretending to be profound." Chen Guang really did not want to know how big of a conspiracy he was involved in. He did not want to think about it at all. It was not that he was stupid, but it was extremely annoying. He was annoyed to no end. Once he mastered his godly skills, he would not have so many messy things to deal with. He only understood one thing. Since the Poison Clan and Dark Clan were still playing this game of beating him up instead of killing him directly, he would definitely be fine even if he swaggered out of this place today. It was obvious that he was still useful to keep his life. Wenwen's power as a thought grandmaster was indeed intimidating enough. They were wary of him. To put it bluntly, the matter was very simple. He could simply rely on his faith points to enter the middle realm of the Heavenly Spirit Cup and learn the painting manual as soon as possible. Then, he might be able to count on the mysterious prize that Lu Li had prepared for him. Then he would become someone with a fist harder than anyone else. I don't care what sect you guys are from, or what looks like. I'm not King playing anymore. The old man is the owner of the heavenly Holy Grail. The old man wants to master all the Qilin arms and become a peerless thought grandmaster with just a lift of his hand. Then he can flip your table, all right? Chen Guang's sudden attack had left everyone dumbfounded, while Sung Yongtai was even dizzy from the punch. Before Yan Ingjian could say anything, Chen Guang punched him in the stomach again. "You're not a good guy either." Scram. Chu Xiaowei and Old Man Tan were also stunned by Chen Guang's sudden outburst. "Thank you for your kind intentions today.
I'm really fine.
It's just a small matter. Go back and pretend that nothing happened and that you don't know anything. Soon, I'll give all of you an explanation, even if I have to risk my life. I'm leaving." Chen Guang was about to leave. Wu Tong caught up and grabbed Chen Guang's arm. "Wait for me." Chen Guang stopped in his tracks and ruthlessly pinched Wu Tong's butt. "I told you to stay out of this. Just go back." Wu Tong shook his head. "No, I don't want to." "You can't?" Chen Guang glared. Wu Tong was actually a little scared by his stare. She pinched him and said, "I'm worried about you." Chapter 584. I'm begging you, all right? Go back to the 5 capitals or the Shun training camp. Do whatever you need to do. We'll be the same person, and you'll be the same person soon enough. Chun Guang had no choice but to follow Wu Tong outside. He stopped and turned to speak to her in a serious tone. It's such a big deal. Wu Tong was stubborn. You saw it too. No matter how big the deal is, I'm still unscathed. I beat up Tseng Yongtai, but didn't I just swagger out like that? Look, if they really wanted to catch me, wouldn't they have done it long ago since we're already walking leisurely to the door? Anyway, things are more complicated than you think, but also simpler than you think. If you think it's a big deal, then it's a big deal. If you think it's a small deal, then it doesn't matter. This isn't your responsibility, anyway. To put it bluntly, you don't have the right to get involved. As Chun Guang spoke, he grabbed Wu Tong's shoulders with both hands. It's not that I'm at odds with you, but if you really get involved, not only will you not be able to do anything, you'll only make things difficult for me. Don't make things difficult for me, all right? Under normal circumstances, Wu Tong was a very stubborn person. She was the same this time. She thought that Chun Guang would relent and give in. However, after so long, Chun Guang still had the same attitude. He was very serious and showed no signs of relenting. This younger brother was no longer like a younger brother. That was what Wu Tong thought. You really can't? She asked. Chun Guang nodded heavily. Yes. Then be careful alone. What do you plan to do? Wu Tong asked. Chun Guang blinked. I don't plan to do anything. Didn't Tseng Yongtai say that poison sect and dark sect want me to behave? Then I'll behave. Don't worry, I'm not stupid enough to court death. I won't do anything, and that's exactly what they want. Really? Of course. I'm so weak now. It's useless, no matter how high I jump on my own. Don't be fooled by my angry look just now. In fact, I've already made it very clear to Tseng Yongtai. As long as I'm willing to cooperate, they won't do anything to me. Beating him up was just because she really didn't like him and wanted to satisfy her craving. Here, I promise you that I won't do anything stupid, okay? Now that Chun Guang had world-class acting skills, he had to pretend to be carefree and nonchalant. He didn't want to be too realistic and shake Wu Tong. All right, I'll listen to you this time. Wu Tong's eyes were filled with tears as she turned around and retreated. Just listen to me. Be a good girl. Chun Guang blinked. He had known Wu Tong for a long time, but this was the first time he had said that to her. Thinking about it, it really wasn't easy, but this time, Chun Guang was determined. No matter how stubborn she was, he didn't intend to give in. Chun Guang originally thought that Old Man Tan and Secretary Chu would quietly follow him to chat, but there was no movement until he got on the plane back to Wujing. He was a little disappointed. The so-called do-nothing was just an act for Tseng Yongtai and his master to see. In fact, he wanted to uproot Tseng Yongtai and his master more than anyone else. But he didn't think that Chu Xiaowei and Old Man Tan would actually swallow Tseng Yongtai's arrogant and smug look on the spot. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes and personally participated in it, Chun Guang wouldn't have believed that in this technologically advanced modern society, there really existed such a privileged class that was completely above ordinary people's heads. Something like inner force could allow some people to have ultimate skills, just like Wenwen's tyrannical strength. But not every inner force martial artist was as strong as Wenwen. Chun Guang thought of Old Man Jin and Old Man Jiang that he had met before. Sitting on the plane, he clenched his fists tightly and gritted his teeth in hatred. Are you guys really that afraid of death? Sitting in such a position and indulging Tseng Yongtai and inner force martial artists like this, how can you live up to your names and the seats under your butts? Getting off the plane with a sullen face, he was about to call his family when his phone inexplicably rang, indicating that the other party's phone was turned off. Chun Guang's heart skipped a beat. He had briefly contacted his family before getting on the plane, and everything was fine. Why did the phone suddenly not go through? In the past, his father had developed the habit of never turning off his phone when he was doing business, and he still hadn't changed it. Even if his phone ran out of battery, he always had a portable power source on him. It was impossible for his phone to be turned off just like that. Could it be that something happened? Let's get someone else to try and see. When he called his mother, her phone was also turned off. Uncle, aunt, None of his more than 20 relatives and family members in Lalai's hometown could get through. An inexplicable sense of fear suddenly emerged in Chen Guang's heart. He had never felt so panicked before. Did he make a mistake again? This time, he had dragged his parents and family down with him. Holding onto the glass door of the airport exit, he felt that all the strength in his body had been drained. Looking up at the afternoon sky outside, it was supposed to be sunny, but he felt that the entire sky was gloomy. He clutched his backpack tightly holding onto the heavenly holy grail inside. An inexplicable murderous intent rose in his chest like a flame, and he gritted his teeth so hard that they almost broke.
Poison Clan.
Dark Clan. If you really dare to touch a single hair on my family, I will make sure that your entire clan is annihilated, and not even the fowls and dogs will be spared. Gritting his teeth, he thought to himself. The airport security personnel next to him noticed that he was behaving strangely. They approached him and asked anxiously, "Young man, what's the matter?" Not long ago, there was a major incident at Shuanghe Airport in Wujing. In the past 2 months, the security of the entire airport had been raised to a whole new level. Chen Guang got up slowly. Nothing. The airport security personnel found it strange. He even shook his head, thinking that he was hallucinating. Why did it seem that the area around this young man was colder than other places? Even the sunlight seemed to have dimmed on him. At this moment, a young man in a suit walked over and called out suspiciously, "Little Guang?" Chen Guang looked up in surprise. "Brother?" That's right, this young man in a suit was Chen Guang's eldest cousin, Feng Yong. He was a small civil servant working in the finance department in the outskirts of Wujing. Chen Guang moved forward agitatedly and hugged Feng Yong's shoulder. At the same time, he looked around vigilantly. Now that the situation was urgent, he had to protect as many people as he could. "Brother, hurry up and leave with me. We can't stay here for long." Feng Yong struggled out of his grasp in bewilderment.
What?
"Little Guang, what's wrong with you?" Chen Guang lowered his voice. "I can't explain it to you clearly, but didn't you notice that we can't get through to Uncle and Aunt's phones? We can't get through to my parents' phones either. Let's go to a safe place first." Feng Yong was even more confused. "Isn't that obvious? I just sent them all on the plane, and the plane is probably about to take off. Of course we can't get through to them."
Huh.
"What's going on?" Chen Guang was dumbfounded. Feng Yong saw that he was completely clueless and said in realization, "Well, you still don't know, right? I got a big shock this afternoon too. They were a bunch of old men and women. I don't know what went wrong in their brains, but they said they wanted to go on a trip just like that. Early this morning, they chartered a car from their hometown and came to Wujing. They even bought the plane tickets. If it wasn't for the fact that the car they chartered was driven by my classmate, I would have almost been fooled. It was a lot of trouble. More than 20 people, and their whole family came?" A big question mark popped up in Chen Guang's mind. Feng Yong nodded. "If it wasn't for the fact that I couldn't leave the office, I would have walked right into their trap and been dragged away by them. Take a look at your WeChat. Your dad must have told you." Chen Guang took out his WeChat and saw a long voice message from Chen Guoli. When Chen Guang heard that, he roughly understood what was going on. Because of the family's bankruptcy, coupled with his mother's illness, the whole family had been poor for the past 2 years. Recently, seeing that they had become rich, his father, who never took the normal path, began to be restless again. He thought about it all day long. People always have all kinds of opportunities and coincidences in their lives. Who knows when they'll grow old, and they'll be gone in the blink of an eye. Now that his family was not short of money, and he had nothing to do, if he didn't go out while he was still healthy when he got old, or if he suddenly disappeared, he wouldn't be able to go out even if he wanted to. Wouldn't it be a waste of his life? Thus, his father simply took out the nearly 1 million yuan bonus that Zhu Jifa's printing factory had sent over a few days ago and brought his entire family on this willful and unscrupulous trip. Their initial goal was to tour 10 countries in Europe. They wouldn't come back until they had a good time. Third, Anne had studied in Europe when she was young, so she had no problem with the language. She also knew the local geography, so there was no need for a tour guide. As for why he hid it from Chen Guang, according to Chen Guoli, It was because he saw how busy he was now, participating in the darts competition and playing the piano. He reckoned that he would have to deal with his sugar daddy, Jiang Yage, in Beijing. As a father, he didn't want to trouble him so that he wouldn't have to worry. Actually, Chen Guang knew that Chen Guoli was afraid that he would make them unhappy if he followed them. He looked at Feng Yong. This is really, Feng Yong rolled his eyes.
Speechless, right?
I was also having a headache. You don't know how crowded it was at the airport. My dad. This uncle of mine. The two cousins were inexplicably distressed by Chen Guoli's unorthodox way of doing things. However, Chen Guang was relieved that it was not the Poison Clan or the Dark Clan who did it.
It was good that they left.
The 10 countries in Europe were a squandering trip with a budget of 50,000 yuan per person. It would probably take at least a month for them to come back. That way, he wouldn't have to be on tenterhooks all the time. Chen Guoli and the rest were completely traveling on their own. According to his unreliable dad, they had no goals, no organization, and no discipline on this trip. Even though it was called 10 countries, it might not be enough. Anyway, they arrived at the destination first and went wherever they wanted. However, in Yanjing, there was a different kind of tense atmosphere. Ordinary people couldn't detect any changes, but somewhere in the dark, there was an extremely solemn atmosphere. I was the one who recommended Ouyang Tianqing. I apologize to all of you here. I, Yi Junming, will take full responsibility for this. All right, oldie, don't say too much. We didn't expect things to turn out this way. It's not just your problem, everyone is responsible. Old man Jean pinched his fingers and muttered, although you were the one who recommended him back then, all of us voted for him to be the candidate as well. Other than Ouyang Tianqing, we didn't have a better candidate. At that particular time, only someone like him, who could handle both sides, could be a good liaison officer. He was also the director of the Special Affairs Bureau. Another old man said, our original intention was for him to restrain the inner force martial artists. He did a good job on the surface. Although our cooperation with the inner force martial artists had been progressing slowly all these years, there had never been any conflicts. That was why we were all deceived. We didn't expect him to use his power to build up his influence over the past 10 or 20 years. Although he was supposed to be a liaison officer, he was actually helping the inner force martial artists clean up the mess they made in the secular world. He even used the privilege we gave him to do it flawlessly. Now that it has become this chaotic situation, all of us are to blame. That's right. If it wasn't for Chen Guang's incident that exposed a secret, we would still be deceived. Thinking about it, it gives me goosebumps. The hot-tempered old man Jiang slammed the table. I don't think we should waste time talking to them. We tolerated them in the past because we were troubled by both internal and external threats and had yet to gain a firm foothold. Now, the country is at peace, and our guns are many times stronger than before. Our weapons are many times more advanced. Why should we be afraid of them? No matter what you think, I, old man Jiang, will not take the blame for this. Otherwise, when I die of old age and enter the coffin, my descendants may criticize me. Look, it's these people who nurtured a tiger and allowed the inner force martial artists to do evil. Anyway, I'm already half a foot in the coffin. If I die, so be it. We turned a blind eye and tolerated them for almost 20 years. Now that they've taken advantage of us, I won't tolerate it anymore. That's right. Let's do it. Yi Junming stood up abruptly. He was the most emotional. I, old Yi, have made the most mistakes. Why don't you let me do it? What era are we living in? This is the era of information and high technology. Although we're old, our soldiers are still young. If they want to turn themselves into a cancer, I, old Yi, am willing to lead the soldiers to remove this cancer. At that moment, the old man in the middle who had been silent coughed softly. Everyone calm down. I'll get little Chu to contact Ouyang Tianqing and see what he has to say. The old man gently pressed a button, and the projector at the back of the conference room lit up. A figure wearing a black robe and a cloak appeared on the screen, making it hard for people to see his face clearly. Greetings, sir. Old man Jiang slammed the table again. You still have the cheek to call us, sir? Old Jiang, be quiet. The old man in the middle shouted. From his old body, an aura that no one dared to disobey gushed out. Old man Jiang sat down slowly, but Ouyang Tianqing did not move in the projection. Ouyang Tianqing, speak. What do you want? The old man in the middle said slowly. Ouyang Tianqing gently shook the cloak on his head and said, Ouyang Tianqing, sincerely apologize to Comrade Xingyongtai and Comrade Xiaoruahai of the Great Chuan Province's Southwest Branch for practicing favoritism and committing fraud in their work. The Special Affairs Bureau has no intention of jumping out of the system and becoming an inner force martial artist's lackey. Our loyalty to the country and to the chiefs has never changed. It's just that in the past, there have been cases of deceiving people like Sun Yongtai and Xiaoruahai. Ouyang Tianqing said that, on the surface, he was expressing his loyalty, but none of the old men believed him. They had heard similar words for many years, but it still ended up like this. Just get straight to the point. The Special Affairs Bureau's affairs can only be handled in a special way. We don't have any other think tanks to refer to. Basically, only the people on the table can make the final decision, the old man in the middle said directly. Ouyang Tianqing grunted. To answer to the chiefs, I've executed Xingyongtai and Xiaoruahai internally. After he said that, he paused for a few seconds to give the old men time to digest the news. I only have one goal in doing this, and that is to completely prevent similar situations from happening again. At the same time, I hope to elevate the National Special Affairs Bureau to a ministerial level. It's because of the current administrative level of my unit that the resources that can be allocated are limited by many factors. That's why there has been no progress in communicating with the inner force martial artists. At the same time, it's very easy for the leaders of the various branches to covet benefits and be bribed by the inner force martial artists. When Xingyongtai jumped out to help Ouyang Tianqing expose this matter, he was basically destined to die. It was funny that he thought he was being put in an important position, but he did not know that he was being abandoned. The old man in the middle was not surprised when he heard the news of Xingyongtai and Xiao Ruoyun's deaths. Things were different now. Although Ouyang Tianqing had been planning for many years, he did not dare to shed all pretense of cordiality with the Huaxiao military and fight for real. He wanted to get rid of Xingyongtai, the incompetent fool, for a long time. This was just an excuse, and he could also show his cards to the old men. He felt that it was time for him to take another step forward. With the scope of the Special Affairs Bureau's authority, once the entire department was promoted to a ministerial level, his identity and status would be close to that of a deputy state. He would wait a few more years, endure until those who should die were dead, and those who should retreat had retreated. When that time came, he would naturally be able to ascend to the throne, and that would be more comfortable than anything else. In this world, no matter how good one's martial arts was, one only had 100 years of life. Rather than muddling along like a fly, it was better to make a big splash. Ouyang Tianqing felt that he had the right time, the right place, and the right people. If he did not take the gamble, he would be letting down his years of hiding in the shadows and living like a snake. Now, it was time for him to step forward and transform into a dragon. In the large meeting room, after Ouyang Tianqing voiced his wish, there was an inexplicable silence. Everyone knew that Ouyang Tianqing was just putting on a show. He had dared to execute Xingyongtai and Xiao Ruoyun in private without the slightest scruple. It could be considered as a proof of his loyalty, but it was also a clear message to everyone that the entire Special Affairs Bureau was like an iron bucket in his hands. If you don't let me advance, I'll make it worse. However, if he really did as he wished, it would mean that he had officially entered the throne room with the help of an inner force martial artist, which would become a hidden danger in the future. Governing a country was like cooking a small fish, and one could never escape the ways of the world. The so-called important matters were also decided time and time again on such a small table. Ouyang Tianqing had placed all the old men on the bonfire, unable to advance or retreat. All right, we understand what you're trying to say, but we can't make a decision on such short notice. Let's think about it a bit more before we make a decision. The old man in the middle used the delaying tactic. Ouyang Tianqing had achieved his goal today, so he did not dare to be overbearing. He responded and cut off the communication. The meeting room was silent again. Everyone looked at the old man in the middle. In the past 20 to 30 years, although the rulers of this country had changed one after another, the important decisions that truly concerned the survival of the country were all made by this old man's mind. After a long time, his murky gaze became brighter. He slowly stood up. Everyone held their breaths in silence. Every word he said next was as heavy as 1,000 caddies. A malignant tumor must be removed. The first sentence set the tone. Chaos can be within their boundaries, but they must not harm the people. The second sentence made his stance clear. I, Old Lin, am not afraid of death. Are you all not afraid of death?
No.
The breathing of many old men in their 60s gradually became heavy. 20 years ago, we were weak because we had no choice. Now, we have the world's most advanced missiles, the best tanks, and millions of soldiers. You're just a few martial artists, and you want to step on all of us and act like tyrants? They aren't as united as a piece of iron. From now on, start Operation Tianguang. Rope in all the martial artists that can be roped in, and remove all tumors that need to be removed. We, this group of old fellows, will bring them to the coffin with us. We'll die sooner or later, and when we've lived enough, we can die at any time. I want to see who dares to come to my bed and put a dagger on it. This was a declaration. Within 2 weeks, we will hold a military exercise with individual combat weapons. It will be kept secret internationally, but open internally. We will specially invite inner force martial artists to come and observe. Get Ouyang Tianqing to deliver the invitation. We will set up a new department at the ministerial level and gradually eliminate the Special Affairs Bureau. This was a swift and decisive strategy. According to reliable sources, the internal force martial artists are also undergoing changes. One of the 3 traditional aristocratic families, the Wen family, has just experienced a change. The eldest daughter of the Wen family, Wen, has become one of the most powerful people in the world. She has already declared war on the Poison Sect and Dark Sect, which are suspected to be the closest to Ouyang Tianqing. The Wen family has always been a scholarly family. They cultivate knowledge, practice the way of health, and appreciate the nature of a saint. Our strategy is to rope in the Wen family and, if necessary, to help them eliminate the Poison Sect and Dark Sect. Other than that, the person in charge of this new department should be someone close to the Wen family. Chen Guang is the best candidate. Chen Guang had underestimated this group of old men. They would either not do it, or they would do it to the end. That night, when he was lying alone on the bed in Zhuo Jingxi's house, Enchanting used the key she already had to push open the door and pull Chen Guang out of bed in his underwear. What are you doing? Are you trying to be a hooligan? A little Olita raiding a pervert's bed at night was too much for him to handle. Enchanting threw a top-secret document in front of him.
Take this.
Didn't you want to flip the table? Now that you're sleepy, someone's here to bring you a pillow. Chen Guang took the document and looked at it. The first page was written in meticulous handwriting. The strokes were domineering and full of murderous intent. One look, and he could tell that it was the handwriting of someone who had been in a high position for a long time. Since the victory of the War of Resistance and the founding of the nation, we, the younger generation, have inherited the legacy of our martyrs and worked together to make the country prosperous and the people strong. 20 years ago, when we were facing internal and external troubles, we were coerced by the martial artists. We were afraid of death and reaped the bitter fruits of our own actions, becoming a sinner. Now, 20 years have passed. We have been treading on thin ice, trembling with fear. Finally, we have achieved something. The martial artists want to stir up trouble and stir up the society. Today, if we give in again, we will not have the face to meet the heroic martyrs in the underworld. We will fight to the death with our half-crippled bodies. We do not seek longevity, but we seek a clear conscience. This opening clearly told Chen Guang the anger and murderous intent that these old men had been suppressing for a long time. Chen Guang laughed. You didn't disappoint me after all. Tianguang plan? Good, very good. Individual military exercises? This is interesting. No one has reported on our country's individual combat weapons in the forum. I've never seen it. Establishing a new department to replace the Special Affairs Bureau? That's not a bad idea. The special department that could nurture a scumbag like Sun Yongtai should have been kicked off a long time ago. Chen Guang read on and was secretly pleased. As the eldest disciple of the Thousand Extremities sect, Enchanting had obviously joined the so-called Tianguang plan. She had sent this top-secret document to him overnight, which meant that she was also a part of the Tianguang plan. Now that he was destined to be enemies with the Poison Sect and the Dark Sect, how could he not be happy that he had found such a powerful backer? Moreover, this Tianguang plan was obviously named after the old man. That was why he was so thick-skinned. The old man's original intention was to push aside the dark clouds to reveal the bright moon, but he had shamelessly used it to his advantage.
Wait.
The name of this new department. Chen Guang pointed at the 4 words written on the black and white paper on the document with some difficulty. Enchanting had asked the others the same question before. She rolled her eyes and explained, "What they mean is that we shouldn't make too much noise at the beginning. They're going to gradually shut down the Special Affairs Bureau. It's not like they're going to cut them off all at once. That's why they deliberately came up with this name, to hide it." Chen Guang broke out in a cold sweat. It's a department-level department after all. Even if it's for the sake of concealment, they can't do this. Isn't this too King shameful? For the sake of concealment, they don't even care about their reputation? Who would be so unlucky as to be this swollen chrysanthemum leader?
Light.
Fixed.
Total.
Bureau.
Ah.
I heard that old man Lin went back and asked his grandson. His grandson said that you would definitely like this name, so it was decided. That's none of my business. Chen Guang spread his hands and continued reading. A few seconds later, his face turned ashen. The first swollen chrysanthemum leader is me, the old man? Enchanting nodded. Yes. Even the temporary name of the department was tailor-made according to your preferences. This is really ket up. Enchanting sighed. I thought so too. What the CK? Why are you messing around with me? Woof woof woof. I'm the deputy swollen chrysanthemum leader. Enchanting was a pure little girl, but when she said this, her jade-white face blushed under the moonlight. She was a little embarrassed. Chapter 585. Chen Guang was silent for a long time. He looked at the pitiful Enchanting and said, "It must have been hard on you." Enchanting sighed. "It's okay. I have to change the name sooner or later. Oh yes, I am almost done with the National Middle School Darts League. When will you have time to see those young players? They are all admiring you now." Chen Guang was noncommittal. "I am not in a hurry. I will think about other things after I get past the current obstacle." The current obstacle? Enchanting thought he was going to announce the first National Chrysanthemum Commissioner. She tidied her clothes and saluted. "Chrysanthemum Commissioner Chen Guang. Please give the order." Goosebumps rose all over Chen Guang's body as he continued. "Just take a break. Please don't mention anything about your bad luck. Why don't you just call me by my name or call me Big Brother Chen Guang like in the past? Aren't you going to give the order?
We're working hours now.
Don't you care about the title?" Enchanting scratched her head in confusion. Chen Guang was even more confused than her. "Give the order?"
Yes.
"They say that a new official must make a clean sweep. Aren't you going to do something?" Enchanting asked curiously. Chen Guang shrugged. "I am in the dark now. Apart from you, the deputy bureau chief, I am a commander without an army. What can I do? Besides, even if there is any arrangement, it will not be made by us. I am not Superman. I am not born with knowledge. Suddenly, I am given such a strange position. Can I just rush out and command the army? Can I just sweep away flowing venom? Isn't this nonsense? We can't even protect ourselves now. The old men above us came up with such a ridiculous name. In fact, they are hinting to us not to act rashly and not to alert the enemy. Let's just do what we have to do and wait for their arrangements. I reckon that things will only become interesting after they're done with their individual military exercises." Enchanting tilted her head. "That means I have nothing to do now. I just told them about the Darts League. Isn't this tormenting them? Chen Guang rolled his eyes. If you really want to find trouble, it's not like there aren't any. It was said that Lolis had 3 good points. Their bodies were delicate and soft, and they were easy to push down. It was the middle of the night, and he was only wearing a pair of CK underwear. Enchanting was such a cute little loli standing in front of him. If he didn't have some dirty thoughts, Chen Guang would be letting down his conscience. What is it? Enchanting didn't know what Chen Guang was up to. Chen Guang pointed at his blanket. I'm now ordering you as the chrysanthemum head. My deputy bureau chief, hurry up and help me warm my bed. In the end, his very reasonable request ended with 2 more dark circles under his eyes, turning him into a national treasure. Chen Guang rubbed his eyes in pain. This was too much. Wasn't it just warming the bed? Was there a need to make such a big fuss? Enchanting ran to the next room to sleep. She was afraid that if she stayed any longer, she would accidentally throw a storm dart and poke holes all over Chen Guang's body. In the end, Chen Guang still couldn't sleep well. Not long after he laid down, he received a call from Wenwen in the middle of the night. I heard about what happened in Yanjing. What are you doing? Didn't I tell you not to get involved in it? Aren't you going to make trouble for me? What about the chrysanthemum head? Wenwen's tone sounded a little impatient. She didn't seem very happy. Chen Guang couldn't do anything about it. Didn't I suddenly force someone to do something beyond my abilities? He briefly told Wenwen what had happened. He heard that before the two of them met, Chen Guang had investigated a family involved in the hot pot poisoning case in Beijing. Later on, 25 lives were implicated. Then, it was said that the people from the Special Affairs Bureau seemed to have received benefits from the poison sect and the dark sect. They wanted him to behave, so they deliberately tormented him to draw the backlash from the elders, which led to the current situation. Wenwen didn't blame him. Chen Guang hadn't done anything wrong to begin with. He had been forced to do things step by step. Wenwen sighed. Actually, I know that with your bad temper, you might not listen even if I told you. But I really hope that you won't interfere anymore. They made you the chrysanthemum head because of your dart skills, but it also has something to do with me, the Wen family's head. Just settle down and practice the painting scroll that I gave you. Be obedient, okay? I'm here. The sky won't fall. You don't know how powerful I am now. Ever since I broke through to the Wenzhong realm, I don't know what happened to me. My skills are improving by leaps and bounds. Meditating for a day is equivalent to 10 days for others. I'm not bragging, but it won't be long before I say that I'm the second best in the world. Chen Guang spat. He thought that Wenwen was bragging. Keep bragging. The Australians can't even eat beef anymore. I'm not joking. I'm serious. Wenwen was angry. Why didn't this guy believe her? Yes. My Wenwen's martial arts are unparalleled. Once she shows her skills, everyone will retreat. Are you satisfied now? Chen Guang was speechless. That day, she almost died under a gun. They hadn't seen each other for a few days. How did she become so thick-skinned over the phone? The world was so big. There were countless people with special abilities. Who would say that they were #1 in the world? Did they think that people in ancient times played sword duel?
Pay.
Who's your family? Don't quibble. Your stomach is going to grow big soon, right? Chen Guang suddenly changed the topic. Get bigger, my ass. It didn't even go in. Cough, cough. Scram. Wenwen roared fiercely. Anyway, I knocked you out and left. That was not the worst part. What was worse was that she even felt that the area between her legs was wet. When she was deep in meditation, she would even be awakened by the sound of splashing coming from below her. As a matter of fact, after completing one cycle, she opened her eyes again. Her face was flushed as she looked at the wet ice jade bed below her. She covered her face and scolded herself. I must have been cursed by that fellow Chen Guang. Did I just sit on the ground and absorb dirt? The strangest thing was that it was precisely this deceitful meditation that did not seem like a meditative state that allowed her to advance at an even faster speed. This was completely different from the way that her Wen family's Danqing manual stated that her heart was as still as water. Let's not talk about Wenwen's awkward situation. Let's talk about Chen Guang's side. After he hung up the phone, he only slept for about an hour in a daze. Then, there was an inexplicable knock on his door. He yawned with difficulty and looked at the little Lolita who was staring at him anxiously. "What's going on? Can you let me have a good sleep?" Enchanting looked at him with a blushing face, then suddenly burrowed into his bed.
Damn.
So direct? Chen Guang was shocked. Enchanting gritted her teeth and said, "You're my superior. I have to obey your orders. If you want me to warm your bed, I'll warm your bed. I apologize. I shouldn't have hit you just now. My master told me that now that the Thousand Despair sect has chosen to cooperate with the government, we must show our utmost sincerity. Obeying your superior's orders is our first sincerity." "I was just joking with you," Chen Guang shouted. "Is that so? I'll leave then." Enchanting ran away again. As she walked, she patted her chest in relief, as if she had let go of a huge burden. Chen Guang was dumbfounded again.
Hey.
"Your reaction is too fast." To be honest, he was a little regretful. The next morning, Chen Guang finally received the biggest piece of good news recently. While he was sleeping the night before, Azure had prepared a brand new special training for him. He could finally take the first solid step in the physical training that he had exchanged for with faith points. Chen Guang plunged into Cloud City. "Can I learn Wind God's legs like Niefeng's in wind and cloud in one go?" Azure chuckled.
Dream on.
"Last time, I let you finish training the entire Qilin arm because it was a reward world in the punishment realm. The normal Jianling sky is slightly weaker. You can train your legs, but you have to start from the soles of your feet step by step. So weak? Weak my ass. It's a free benefit, and you have the cheek to say that it's weak? If you have the ability, then don't practice it. Why don't you practice it according to your Wenwen's painting scroll? By the way, don't be in a hurry. Before you practice, boil the medicine that your Wenwen sent over according to her prescription. It will be good for you." It was rare for Azure to be so considerate. Although she was impatient, she actually knew to remind Chen Guang of the things that he should pay attention to. Okay. Chen Guang agreed happily. "By the way, Lord Azure, can you help me estimate how many Jianling Sky special training worlds I need to practice before I can start practicing my internal strength?" Azure stretched out 4 fingers. Chen Guang was overjoyed. 4? Azure smiled without saying anything. 40? Chen Guang asked again. Azure snapped her fingers. "Ice dog. Bingo. F***CK. At my current speed, I can only practice 1 round of special training after several days of faith points. Won't it take more than half a year to practice 40? Chen Guang panicked. Seeing that a great battle was imminent, he was very anxious. Azure shrugged. "You're blaming me? You're the one who has been idling around all day, not doing proper work. You're blaming me for not increasing your faith points production? Besides, do you think it's that easy to master external strength and body? Although that painting scroll is low-end, it can indeed train a person's muscles, bones, skin, flesh, and even internal organs to the extreme. The heavenly Holy Grail only needs 40 small worlds to surpass its master. It will take at most 7 to 8 months. Why do you still need a bicycle? Alright, you don't have to say anymore. I'll think of a way to get more faith points. I'll think of a way right now." Chen Guang was not in a hurry to start the special training. Instead, he quickly went out to receive a delivery. The medicinal ingredients that Wenwen had sent had been there for 2 to 3 days. These things were very valuable. Speaking of which, the delivery person was also an old acquaintance. It was the Dragon Gate delivery that he was the spokesperson for. Every delivery will arrive. Chapter 586. He got up and went out. Enchanting had already gone downstairs to buy breakfast. It wasn't that Chen Guang was slacking off, but he was quite famous now, especially around Gokyo University. He had almost become one of the 5 prides of the university. Everyone talked about him, and he was getting more and more famous. It was easy for people to notice him wandering around outside. If he went downstairs to have breakfast with a beautiful little girl like Enchanting, who knew if it would become the breaking news the next day. "You can stay at home and do whatever you want," Chen Guang said casually as he stuffed a bun into his mouth. Enchanting looked at him and suddenly asked, Isn't your house across the street? Why are you staying here? Chen Guang paused for a long time before he suddenly remembered this. It was strange that he went to Zhuo Jingxi's bedroom to sleep. He must have been controlled by a demon. What do you know? Rich people can do whatever they want. Rich people rent 2 rooms at a time, sleep one, and leave one empty. Otherwise, I don't know how to spend the money. TSK, there's something fishy. I saw it yesterday. The bedroom you slept in was clearly a room that a girl usually stayed in.
Tell me.
Are you hiding a mistress behind Jin Shiriyue or Miss Wen's back? Enchanting suddenly asked about Chen Guang. Chen Guang was confused by her random questions. He patted her head and said, "Kids should eat and grow. Don't ask about adult matters." You womanizer. Enchanting glared at him fiercely again, but she was thinking, I have to be careful of this guy. What if one day he really orders me to sleep with him? What should I do? Master, should I listen to the orders of this fat chrysanthemum leader? I haven't considered such a complicated situation. If that's the case, I can only knock him out. Oh, right. What are you going to do later? I'm going to get something from Dragon Gate Express. Chen Guang put down his bowl and finished it quickly. I'll go with you. What are you going to do? Just stay at home obediently. In fact, Chen Guang wanted to take the opportunity to secretly look for Lu Fei to see if he could borrow some money from her. Although he had recently earned some money through Weibo and live streaming, he was in a hurry to expand the source of faith points. There were many places where he needed to spend money. It was better to have more liquid funds in reserve. He could borrow some money from Lu Fei, the country bumpkin, and then think of a way to slowly pay it back every month. Things were different now. Now that his income had increased, he didn't have any psychological barriers to borrowing money. Besides, didn't Liu Li still have 170 million yuan to buy the company? Although there was no sign of it floating away, it would happen sooner or later, right? Even if it's a loss, it's still a loss. At least leave me some scraps, right? At the same time, he could also see what Sister Lu Fei was busy with recently. Did she have a change of heart? Could he take advantage of her? He really didn't know what was going on. After returning from Yanjing to Wujing, he felt inexplicably unsettled again. It was all Jiang Ye's fault. She blocked him in the toilet and took advantage of the old man for most of the day, but he couldn't do it to the end. He felt empty in his heart until now. Yesterday, he had been too busy during the day. There were too many things to do, so he had no time to think about those messy and dirty thoughts. But when he returned to the 5 capital, he needed to borrow money, thought of Lu Fei, and then thought of the time when he was with Lu Fei, when he took whatever she wanted. His mind really drifted uncontrollably. His thoughts were beautiful, but reality was cruel. In the end, he still couldn't get rid of Enchanting. No matter what, she had to wear a mask and sunglasses and follow him. I'm your deputy director now. You're useless except for throwing darts. I have the responsibility and obligation to protect your safety. Chen Guang started the Phaeton with the Passat logo. As he drove to the exit of the parking lot, he said, "Don't look down on me. If you want to practice darts well, you must first have a pair of strong arms. Although I don't have internal strength now, the old man has the strongest Kirin arm in history. Do you understand? Do you see this impeccable bicep? The exclusive bicep of Kirin arm is worth having and trustworthy."
Bah.
You're so lewd. Don't you feel ashamed to say such wretched words in front of a cute girl like me? Although Enchanting was naive, she actually understood the online slang of Kirin arm. Chen Guang was really ashamed. This can't be blamed on me. There is a deep reason behind it. Please believe that I'm a good and upright young man. It's your own hand. Don't you decide what you want to call it? If it's wretched, then it's wretched. Why explain? It's not my first day knowing you. You're a boy after all. Which boy doesn't have messy thoughts? I understand and understand. Since you've helped me so much, do you want to experience the unique technique of the Thousand Despair sect, the Thousand Despair Kirin arm? As Enchanting spoke, she turned her head and looked at Chen Guang with a playful gaze. Really? Chen Guang was overjoyed.
Bah.
You'll show your true colors after a little seduction. Upright my ass. Enchanting turned her face away decisively and did not want to talk to him anymore. Chen Guang clenched his teeth fiercely.
Don't force me.
Be careful that I act as a world-class charmer. I'll talk to you until you turn into a little slut. What are you thinking? I keep feeling that your eyes are shining when you look at the chrysanthemum of the car in front. Shut up. Don't disturb me while I'm driving. As the two of them bickered strangely, they arrived at the entrance of a luxurious residential area near the Second Ring Road in Wujing City. Dragon Gate Express was different from other delivery companies. Due to the uniqueness of their business, they either did not have any business or they wanted to do big business. They did not need a huge warehouse. In fact, they only had one branch office in each city, which served as both a warehouse and an office. This branch office in Wujing was located in this luxurious residential area that was known as the Wealthy District. It occupied a standalone villa of about 500 square meters. Actually, Chen Guang could have asked them to deliver the goods to his door with a phone call. However, his original plan was to lure Xi and Qin out to look for Lu Fei. Since he had already lied, he could only go there personally to cover up his lie. The two of them waited at the entrance of the residential area for a while. A young man in a suit walked out. He followed the license plate number and knocked on Chen Guang's car window. Are you Chen Guang? Chen Guang felt that the young man's attitude was not very friendly. However, considering that Dragon Gate Express had a martial arts background and was doing a big business, it was normal for the King of Hell to be difficult to deal with. He nodded and said, "That's me." Then, the young man greeted the security guard of the residential area and said casually, "Go straight in and turn right after passing the third villa. It's villa number 66 in the 7th building." He left right after he said that. He did not intend to lead the way for Chen Guang. Xi and Qin raised her nose angrily and looked at the back of the young man. His nostrils are so high up in the sky. Director Long, the quality of the employees in this company is too bad. He has only trained to muscle force. He is not very capable, but he has quite a temper. As Chen Guang drove through the fence, he wondered, "You can see through his skills?" Xi and Qin said proudly, "Of course. I'm a genius disciple of the Thousand Despair sect. What secret can a mere muscle force have in front of me? You won't be able to find someone at my age who is trained to bone force, which is close to skin force." Chen Guang quietly said 2 words, "One." Xi and Qin was immediately unhappy. She pouted and said, One. All you think about is one.
What's so good about her?"
If I were you, I would have cut ties with her a long time ago. Didn't she think that being friends with you would bring you trouble? All right, I won't argue with you. Chen Guang did not completely not think about what Xi and Qin said. However, no one was perfect. When he and Wen first met, who would have expected so many things to happen? However, he did not regret it and he could not blame Wen for it. If he really wanted to blame someone, he could only blame those people who tried to harm the Wen family. However, thinking about it, Wen also blamed herself. However, it did not matter. When the old man mastered the painting scroll and became the Condor heroes with her, they would be able to tidy up everything that needed to be tidied up. Then, all the past would disappear. For these two people, thousands of thoughts did not need to be spoken out. They were hidden in their hearts and understood each other. The two of them stopped the car. The young man in the suit had already gone upstairs. The two of them knocked on the doorbell again. After waiting for about a minute, someone came down to open the door. This time, it was someone else who opened the door. It was a young man in a white chemical protective suit. He threw 2 sets of hard chemical protective suits over. "Put them on and follow me to the underground warehouse." Chen Guang and Xi and Qin held their temper and wrapped the chemical protective suits tightly. However, they were thinking whether they should talk to President Long Dingtian later and see what kind of people his unlucky company kept. Do you still want to do your business? What kind of service attitude is this? Since you want to do high-class delivery of valuable goods, then the customers you contact must be rich or noble. Look at what these lousy employees in your company have done. No matter what others think, the old man will not let people deliver goods from your company next time unless he has a cramp in his brain. Chen Guang and Xi and Qin were not in a hurry to cover the chemical protective suits. Chen Guang whispered, "How about we talk to President Long and ask him not to broadcast my advertisement?" This is simply smearing my reputation as a spokesperson. Xin also nodded. A little bit, but I have already spent the money. What should I do? Really? Then let's wait for them to run their own company down. Anyway, there is no way for me to pay for it. What are you two whispering about?
Put on the mask.
There are some valuable goods in the warehouse. What if your breath condenses into water mist and corrodes them? The young man in front turned back and shouted through the chemical protective suit mask. Xin was about to explode. I have a little temper. Chunguang quickly pulled her back. Don't be impulsive. Don't be impulsive. Take the things first. Xin put on the mask angrily. Forget it. For President Long's sake, I will endure it one more time. All right, take your hand away. My Wangzai mantu is not enough for you to pinch. Oh, little girl, you are so sharp. Chunguang withdrew his hand in embarrassment and put on his mask as well. Really, you should have said such an embarrassing thing in private. In broad daylight, people who didn't know better would think that an old man like me was taking advantage of a little girl. It was just that this chemical protective suit was too hard and he couldn't feel it at all. This was an accident, really an accident. After going through a long staircase, the three of them went all the way to the basement. Halfway through, they passed at least 3 disinfection gates. Although the quality of the employees of this Dragon Gate Express was so low that it made one's hair stand on end, the hardware and facilities looked quite high-end. Fingerprint lock, password lock, and iris lock. The young man consecutively entered 3 passwords and finally opened a large iron gate on the wall. Then, he pulled out an ebony box that was 1.5 feet tall, 1 foot 7 inches wide, and 2.5 feet long. He put it on the ground. You guys can move it out. The things are here. Chun Guang's eyelids twitched. This bastard must have been kicked out of bed by his wife last night. His resentment must be too strong, right? This was a skill that constantly emitted fire chi to attract aggro. Its proficiency level was off the charts. Forget it. For the sake of President Long's endorsement fee of 10 million, I will King endure it. Chun Guang bent over and picked up the box. He rushed out of the underground storeroom and walked up the stairs. Xin also fiercely glared at this uneducated staff member and memorized his stupid face behind the chemical protective suit mask. If I don't call Boss Long after I get out of here, I'll see you until my head is full of bumps. Otherwise, this lowly's name isn't Xin. When the two of them went up to the first floor, the young man in the suit from before came again. You two, you have taken the things. Can we go now?
Go.
Let's go. Don't King rush us. Xin was so angry that she actually cursed. Chun Guang, on the other hand, rubbed his fists together. As long as this bastard said something unpleasant again, he would immediately slap him in the face. He had sold President Long's face time and time again, but he could not sell it anymore. This King endorsement fee, could the old man not earn it anymore? Unexpectedly, the young man in the suit was not angry at all. He still had a smile on his face as he opened the door. He waved his hand and said, "Please." The two of them walked out of the villa angrily. They had no idea what had happened today. Chun Guang was about to move the box into the car when he suddenly realized a problem. With the old man's many years of online shopping experience, we seem to have forgotten to open the box and inspect the goods. Inspect the goods? Inspect what goods? Dragon Gate Express will not do things recklessly. Oh right, what are the things inside?
Who sent them?
Xin was puzzled. Chun Guang waved his hand.
No.
Under normal circumstances, I will definitely not inspect the goods. But don't you think that the 2 scumbags just now are too much? They seem to want to chase us out like we are the plague. Xin smacked her lips. Really? Chun Guang nodded. It's a ghost. A huge ghost. Open the box and take a look. Xin nodded. The two of them placed the box on the ground and opened it. It was filled with medicinal herbs, and the smell of medicine wafted into their noses. Is there no problem? Is it Chinese medicine? Chun Guang took out his phone and opened WeChat. He compared the list of goods that Wenwen had sent him. Is this the medicine that Wenwen sent you? Enchanting asked as she bent down to look at the medicinal herbs. Chen Guang nodded. He thought that since she was pestering him all day, he could not hide the fact that he wanted to soak the medicine from her. He might as well tell her. He could not let the painting scroll spread, but it was not a problem to let Enchanting know that he wanted to practice the painting scroll. Yes, these are the external medicinal herbs that when prepared for me to practice the painting scroll. Painting scroll? Enchanting exclaimed. Then, she realized that she had lost her composure and covered her mouth. How is that possible? The Wen family's painting scroll is never spread. Even the son-in-law, who marries into the family, cannot learn it.
This is their ancestral teaching,
she said nervously in a low voice. She looked like she had seen a ghost. Chen Guang was pleased. What do you know? This is true love. Moreover, she is now a literary grandmaster. I heard that she can decide to pass the painting scroll to me. It's not a problem. Enchanting was jealous. She was jealous that Chen Guang could learn the painting scroll. She was even more jealous that when one was a literary grandmaster, she could actually give the painting scroll to him as a favor. Compared to these two, her reputation as a genius disciple of the Thousand Absolutes sect was really shameful. What else could she give to Chen Guang that would be more prestigious than the painting scroll? She could not give him the cultivation technique of the Thousand Absolutes sect. Apart from her stunning beauty and her peerless body, she probably could not compare to Wen in anything else, right? She thought. Then, she picked up a ginseng. Her eyes narrowed. Something's not right. Your list says it's 100-year-old ginseng, but why do I feel that the one in my hand is a small radish? What? Radish? Are you kidding me?
Crunch.
Enchanting took a bite and stuffed it in front of Chen Guang's mouth. Why don't you try it? It's a real radish. It's the kind that can replenish all kinds of vitamins. It's natural and organic. Chen Guang could not care less about his indirect kiss with Enchanting. He took a bite and threw the radish on the ground. I'm a thunder thrower. 100-year-old ginseng turned into a radish. This Dragon Gate Express is going against the heavens. Clearly, Wen could not have sent it to the wrong person. Other than the fact that this daring Dragon Gate Express employee had switched the ginseng, he could not think of anything else. However, Chen Guang couldn't be bothered to figure out where his employees got their guts from to even dare to switch their spokesperson's goods. He held onto the box with one hand and returned to the door, banging on the door. Come out. Come out. Chapter 587. How could Chen Guang tolerate such a scam? He slammed the alloy security door so hard that it made banging sounds. He was barely able to control himself. Otherwise, the security door would probably be deformed if he used all his strength. After slamming for almost 2 minutes, the person inside finally could not take it anymore. It was still the young man in a suit. He opened the door and glared at Chen Guang. What are you doing? Are you looking for trouble? When this person spoke, his nostrils were practically pointed at the sky. He was arrogant, despotic, and condescending. Chen Guang waved the other white radish he took out from the box and waved it in front of this bastard's eyes. Looking for trouble? I think you're the one looking for trouble. Open your dog eyes and take a good look at what this is. I exchanged my 100-year-old ginseng for a white radish. You guys sure have guts. How dare you eat my stuff? The young man in a suit was not nervous in the face of Chen Guang's questioning. He was still as arrogant as ever. Don't slander us. Our company's business is over after we handed the stuff over to you. Now that you've opened the box yourself, you're telling me that you exchanged your stupid ginseng for a white radish? Who knew if the box was originally filled with white radishes? Otherwise, you must have replaced the radishes yourself. How dare you try to blackmail us, Dragon Gate Express? Chen Guang was furious. This bastard was the perfect example of a delivery company's bad habit. After receiving the goods, he did not acknowledge it and did not even allow him to open it on the spot. Yet, Chen Guang was making a false accusation. Would Wen send a white radish over? Don't *king mess with me, okay?
Get lost.
Don't interfere with our work. Otherwise, you'll be in trouble. The young man in a suit waved his hand impatiently. He wanted to chase Chen Guang away, as if he was chasing a fly away. Chen Guang flew into a rage and was about to attack, but Enchanting, who was beside him, couldn't hold back anymore. Sure enough, he was still a young man with a bad temper. He attacked without saying a word and didn't want to talk nonsense with him. A white shadow flashed, and the petite Enchanting brushed past Chen Guang. She placed her hand on Chen Guang's shoulder and flew up like a butterfly. The tip of her foot lightly stepped on the forehead of the young man in the suit. It seemed to be a light touch, but the young man was sent flying as if he had been hit by a heavy hammer. With a rumble, he crashed into the wooden handrail a few meters behind him and fell to the ground. The other employees of Dragon Gate Delivery who were sitting on the first floor of the villa slapped the table and stood up. They surrounded him, and all of them were very excited. Enchanting stood there with a cold face. She pulled off the mask on her face. How dare a group of weaklings be so arrogant? Even if I let you use only one hand, you still wouldn't be my opponent. Enchanting of the Thousand Despair sect was here. Who dares to attack me? Chen Guang stood behind Enchanting. He wanted to see what would happen if he hit this person's stomach with his Qilin arm, but he did not have the chance to do so. He felt regretful, but since Enchanting took the initiative to jump out and become his fighter, he was happy that he could save himself some effort. The young man in the suit was clearly the person in charge of this branch company. Even though he was suddenly hit, Enchanting had shown mercy and did not kill him. He rubbed the blood from his mouth and stood up slowly. He glared at Enchanting with a fierce gaze.
Don't talk nonsense.
Ms. Xian is in Beijing, and it's impossible for her to come here. You're an imposter. Oh my, I'm a little hot-tempered. Enchanting rolled up her sleeves and walked forward. She really wanted to cut this person into pieces. Chen Guang reacted quickly. He quickly extended his arms from behind her and hugged her. Wait a minute. Let me get my things back first. Let me tell you, next time you take advantage of me like this, can you at least tell me beforehand? There are so many people watching. No, it's an accident. This is definitely an accident. Look at my sincere eyes. Chen Guang coughed twice and stood in front of the young man in the suit. I'm not going to talk nonsense with you. Now give me back all the herbs that you stole, and I can pretend that nothing happened. Do you know who I am? Do you know who gave me this medicine? Do you believe that I will call your boss Long right now? When that time comes, you won't be able to bear the consequences. When he said this, he did not know why, but a strong sense of incongruity arose in his heart. Oh my God, when did the old man become so villainous? Usually, villains who said such things to show off would not survive more than 2 episodes in the story. I don't care who you are. Anyway, I don't know what's going on with your medicine. It was obvious that the young man in the suit did not care about anything that Chen Guang said. Chen Guang frowned. Could it be that these people really did not know him? When he thought about it, it was not impossible. After all, although he was a little famous now, he was still far from an international superstar like Wazai. It was understandable that they did not know him. However, this matter seemed to be a little *cut up. He did not know how Dragon Gate Express's rules were set up. It seemed that the sender and the recipient's information were all hidden. The standard of this salesman was almost breaking the bottom line. You're so stubborn, aren't you? It seems that I can only call your boss Long. He even dares to steal the herbs that the head of the Wen family gave to me, Chen Guang, who is also the spokesperson of Dragon Gate Express. He is so lawless, Chen Guang said as he prepared to take out his phone. The tense atmosphere immediately froze, and everyone turned their heads to look. Another loud bang came, and the anti-theft door fell. A muscular figure stood at the door, and it was the livid Chairman Long of Dragon Gate Express, Long Dingtian. The young man in the suit immediately lost his will to fight. He sat on the ground with a trembling voice. Sect Master, Long Dingtian strode forward and said angrily, "How dare you?" The young man in the suit was so terrified that he could not speak clearly. This is a misunderstanding, Sect Master. Long Dingtian ignored him. Instead, He turned around and cupped his hands at Chen Guang and Enchanting. Both of you, I, Long Dingtian, would like to apologize to you here. Such a scum has appeared in the sect, and it has ruined my reputation. I will definitely compensate Mr. Chen for your loss, and I will definitely give both of you a satisfactory explanation. Chen Guang looked at Long Dingtian, who was suppressing his anger, and he was not very happy. I was your spokesperson, and one trusted your company and asked you to help me deliver the goods. In the end, it turned out to be like this. Chairman Long, your company's business standards really need to be improved. If I didn't come with Enchanting today, I'm afraid your incredible employees would have killed me. Chen Guang here. Chen Guang's words were filled with dissatisfaction. Enchanting was also very unhappy. Chairman Long, since you've chosen to do business, you should follow the rules of a businessman. If you don't give me a satisfactory answer, I'm afraid I'll go back and report this to my master. As for the business between our Thousand Despair sect and Thousand Flower Valley, Long Dingtian's expression changed, and his pupils shrank. He seemed to have made a decision and cupped his hands again. Of course, I, Long Dingtian, have always been a responsible person. At that moment, the young man in the suit realized something from Long Dingtian's tone. His face turned pale, and he retreated while shouting, "No.
No.
Sect Master, you were..." As soon as the young man in the suit finished his sentence, Long Dingtian turned around at lightning speed and slapped the young man's head. His inner force burst forth, and a dull sound was heard. The eyes of the young man in the suit instantly became slack. His mouth was wide open, and his face was filled with panic. His eyes were filled with confusion and unwillingness, but he was still dead in the end. He fell limply to the ground, and there was no longer any sign of life. The main culprit has been executed. All of you, break one of your arms. Long Dingtian said coldly as he pointed at the other 10 staff members of the 5 Capital Branch Company, who were also his sect's disciples. I'll count to 3. Those who break their arms will die. Long Dingtian began to count. 3. As soon as he finished counting to 3, he heard a series of groans in the room. These people were fighting to be the first to break their arms, and the scene looked exceptionally cruel. Long Dingtian's decisiveness in killing was beyond Chen Guang's expectations, but Enchanting didn't seem to be surprised. Mr. Chen, is this considered an explanation? Long Dingtian turned around again and smiled apologetically at Chen Guang and Enchanting. Yes. Chen Guang suppressed the discomfort in his heart and snorted. In the past, he had only seen these inner force martial artists disregard human lives in the intelligence reports or after the incident. Today, he had experienced it himself, and he was the cause of the incident. Of course, he felt a little uncomfortable. However, such incidents might not be rare in the future, so he had to adapt even if he couldn't adapt. Enchanting didn't say anything and just nodded slightly in satisfaction. Enchanting might look like a cute loli normally, but when it came to the matters of the underworld, she was more experienced than Chen Guang. However, Long Dingtian waved his hand again. This isn't enough. As soon as he finished speaking, he punched his chest fiercely. A muffled sound echoed like the ringing of a large bell, and a trace of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Because of my personal negligence, Mr. Chen and Enchanting from the Thousand Despair sect have fallen into a dangerous situation and suffered grievances. I'll hurt my heart as an apology. I hope Miss Enchanting won't let this matter affect my cooperation with your sect. Alright, I promise you. Enchanting finally relented. From the moment Long Dingtian entered the door until now, he had been interrogated, killed, broken arms, and mutilated himself. This series of events took a long time to describe, but it happened so quickly that it caught people off guard. At the dining table in Beijing, he was the smiling and amiable Chief Long. However, when he arrived at the 5 Capital Branch Company, he became a pure underworld person when dealing with the traders. When he made a move, he killed without blinking. Long Dingtian wiped off the blood from the corner of his mouth again. He didn't take the injuries on his body seriously and cupped his fists at Chen Guang. Mr. Chen, please take a seat. I'll get someone to send over the medicinal ingredients that they dared to steal. I'll definitely compensate you twice as much as you lack." Chen Guang didn't reply and merely nodded. His peripheral vision would occasionally glance at the corpse of the young man in a suit that was lying on the ground. This small action completely exposed his state of mind as an ordinary person. Long Dingtian rolled his eyes and asked the few servants who broke their arms to retrieve the stolen goods. He then said rather casually, "Mr. Chen, don't be surprised. When these servants entered our sect, they had to sign a life and death agreement. His behavior in our Dragon Gate escort agency is equivalent to deceiving his master and ancestors." Chapter 588. Before Chen Guang and Xi and Qinlin were about to leave, Long Dingtian asked about Chen Guang's UBS account. He said that he felt guilty about what happened today and that he would definitely repay him generously as compensation for his mental distress. After placing the big box in the trunk, Chen Guang got into the car and turned to ask Xi and Qin, "Chief Long is one of us, right?" Xi and Qin was puzzled as she tucked her hair behind her ear. "Brother Chen Guang, are you frightened by how he killed his subordinate?" It didn't matter. His servants' actions today were a huge taboo for an escort agency that was built on its reputation. My Thousand Despair sect and the Dragon Gate escort agency have been working together for many years. Previously, when you obtained the strength elixir, most of the delivery work was handed over to the Dragon Gate escort agency. We are old acquaintances and can be trusted. Is that so? Forget it then. Chen Guang smiled as the doubts in his heart gradually disappeared. Just as he was about to start the car, a deafening explosion came from behind. When the two of them turned around, they could only see the dazzling fire. It was obviously daytime, but it was so bright that they were almost blinded. The detached villa behind the two of them had actually exploded in front of their eyes. Broken walls and debris were flying everywhere, and a huge piece of broken cement was heading straight for the Phaeton. Chen Guang was quick to react. He still maintained his posture of looking back, but his right hand had already switched to the gear with lightning speed. He stepped on the accelerator, and the Phaeton's engine roared crazily as it sped forward. The piece of cement that was chasing after them smashed into the spot where they had stopped, and smoke and dust were everywhere. What's going on?" Chen Guang and Xi and Qin asked it in surprise at the same time. Before they could finish their sentence, there was another explosion. Raging flames engulfed the villa and instantly engulfed the entire villa. Xi and Qin was about to get out of the car, but Chen Guang pulled her back. "Don't go." Right at this moment, two figures suddenly rushed out from the flames. The one in front was the tall and sturdy Long Dingtian, but at this moment he no longer looked like a sect leader. His face was charred black, his hair was smoking, and his whole body was burnt black. His clothes were torn and tattered, and his chest and arms were full of bloodstains and wounds, making him look like he was in a sorry state. Another relatively thin figure followed behind him and jumped out of the fire. It seemed that the explosion did not cause much damage to her clothes. It was the middle-aged woman who had just come out of the kitchen. "Long Dingtian, hand over your life." The cooking auntie took strange steps and roared. She took out a soft sword from her waist and stabbed at Long Dingtian's back. Long Dingtian tried to escape 2 steps, but his injuries worsened, and he couldn't pull away from her. He could only turn around boldly and stomp his feet on the ground. He took a stable horse stance and punched at the woman's soft sword with both fists. "Old Lady Jean Hua, I, Long Dingtian, will never forgive you. Haha, I didn't intend to fight at first, but since you hurt yourself today, don't blame me, Grandma Jean Hua, for taking this opportunity to send you to hell." The cooking auntie grinned and swung her flexible sword lightly, creating an afterimage that swept towards Long Dingtian's fists. At this moment, she no longer had the appearance of a servant. Her demeanor and tone were filled with a sinister aura. Suddenly, the two of them collided fiercely. Blood splattered from Long Dingtian's arms, and his flesh flew everywhere. He did not know how badly he was injured by Grandma Jean Hua's sword. However, Jean Hua Popo did not have it easy either. Long Dingtian, in a desperate situation, allowed her to stab the flesh on his hand with her soft sword. He did not even try to evade. Instead, he punched forward with both fists, hitting her in the chest and sending her flying back into the sea of fire. However, Long Dingtian didn't dare to follow up with another attack. Instead, he dragged his injured arms and ran out. Chen Guang, who was reversing the car to support him, felt his teeth ache when he saw Long Dingtian's arms. A small part of the flesh on his forearm had been sliced off by the flexible sword in an instant, and one could easily see the eerie white bones. Get in the car. Chen Guang turned the steering wheel with his left hand and placed the back door beside Long Dingtian. Long Dingtian opened the door and got in without hesitation. Grandma Jean Hua rushed out of the sea of fire again. She was not as carefree as before. Her hair was disheveled, and the ends of her hair were still emitting flames. She looked like a crazy demon. Long Dingtian, die for me. Let's go. Crazy Grandma Jean Hua is one of the Dark Clan's 4 great protectors. She has a blood feud with me. Usually we are on par, but today I'm injured on top of my injuries. I'm no match for her. Long Dingtian curled up his body. The excruciating pain caused sweat to seep out of his forehead and his dark face to turn pale. As Chen Guang sped up, Enchanting leaned out of the passenger's window and threw the storm dart. The storm dart enveloped Grandma Jean Hua and slowed her down. They broke through the villa's guardrail and went straight to the suburbs without slowing down. Chen Guang used his driving skills to the extreme. If the racing god wanted to escape, no one would be able to catch up. Under Long Dingtian's guidance, they crossed a small road and came to an inconspicuous house in the suburbs. Long Dingtian got out of the car and fell to the ground. As for the back seat of Chen Guang's phaeton, it was completely stained by his blood. A group of people rushed out of the house and hurriedly carried Long Dingtian inside. However, Chen Guang and Enchanting were not in a hurry to follow them. Chen Guang asked, "The Dark Clan's 4 great protectors? What's the matter with this crazy Grandma Jean Hua? What kind of blood feud does she have with Boss Long?" Enchanting's gaze was solemn. "It's not strange. Although I don't know what their past is, there are rumors of their conflict in the pugilistic world. Maybe it's because they killed each other when they were young." Golden Flower Granny was skilled in disguising herself and sneak attacks. She was the dark sex protector, but she was also in charge of the dark sex business that was similar to Dragon Gates Express. The two of them had old grudges and new grudges, and this was not the first time they had fought like this. I just didn't expect old Grandma Jean Hua to be crazy enough to disguise herself as a servant and hide in the 5 capitals. If it weren't for us, Long Dingtian would be dead.
What?
Business rivals. Why are they making such a big fuss over a business? Chen Guang was stunned. He thought of the love-hate relationship between SF Express and Jidong, as well as the commotion between Hungry Man and Matewan. Compared to these 2 business elites, those people were simply amateurs. Look at how other people's bosses snatch business. Learn from them. Enchanting shrugged. There are many things in the pugilistic world that you don't know. Then we won't be involved in this, right? Chen Guang was a little troubled. He didn't want to face a crazy woman like old Grandma Jean Hua. Enchanting asked him in return, "To be honest, aren't you more involved than Boss Long? Right now, your Wenwen is going around saying that she wants to uproot both the Poison Clan and the Dark Clan." That makes sense. Forget it. There's no need to worry about too many debts." Chen Guang also felt that his worries were meaningless. Thinking about it carefully, he was the one who was implicated. The 2 of them stood at the door for a while, but Long Dingtian had already woken up. He was barely bandaged and was wrapped up like a mummy. He forced someone to help him out of the room. "Thank you for saving my life." He wanted to cup his fists again, but before he could raise his hands, he was in so much pain that he had to grit his teeth. Chen Guang waved his hand. "You're welcome. Anyway, we're not the same family as the Dark Clan. It's just that your injuries," Long Dingtian was rather heroic. "It's fine. This is nothing. I had a fight with old Grandma Jean Hua in the past, and she almost dug my heart out. This is just a small injury, and I'll recover after some rest. It's just that this time, the two of you were involved in my fight with old Grandma Jean Hua. I'm really ashamed.
Chen Guang didn't mind.
Don't stand on ceremony. It's fate that we got to know each other. If there's nothing else, we'll take our leave first. Looking at how Long Dingtian was still trying his best to hold on despite his injuries, even he felt the pain for him. Chen Guang was starting to get anxious. Enchanting was at the peak of bone tendons, while Long Dingtian and old Grandma Jean Hua were experts in skin force. In the past, Wenwen was also an expert in skin force. However, Chen Guang had never seen Wenwen using her real skills. Previously, in the mountains of Feng Town in Beijing, when he rushed over, he was basically just cleaning up the aftermath. Today, after witnessing it with his own eyes, Chen Guang realized that this skin force martial artist was much stronger than he had imagined. To forge iron, one had to be strong. Compared to these people, his Qilin arms and dart skills were nothing. He was panicking and wanted to rush back to soak in medicine and cultivate. His own strength was the most important. Long Dingtian was seriously injured and wasn't in a good state of mind. He didn't keep Chen Guang and Enchanting any longer. He only said that he would repay Chen Guang for saving his life today and didn't know what else to give. He only asked Chen Guang to pay attention to the money in his bank account. Chen Guang didn't take it seriously and drove away. Halfway through the journey, his phone rang. He was waiting at a red light when he took a look. TSK, I thought it was a lot. It's just 4 million. You're bluffing. If it was in the past, 4 million would have been enough for him to enjoy for half a year. But it was different now. He worked hard on Weibo every month, and he also worked hard on his live stream. His monthly income was at least 2 to 3 million. It was just 4 million. It wasn't exciting. Enchanting picked it up for him and took a look.
4 million?
That's great. The remaining 36 million is mine. I'll go. Chen Guang stopped the car by the roadside and snatched the phone back from Enchanting. After taking a closer look, he realized that he had missed a zero. He was delighted. Stop fooling around. I have urgent need for this money. President Long is generous enough to solve my urgent need. What generous? He used his life to exchange for it. 40 million is too cheap for him.
Can you share some with me?
I want to invest more in the darts league. Enchanting shook Chen Guang's arm and acted like a spoiled child. Chen Guang shook his head. I can't explain it to you clearly, but I really have great use for it. Out of the 7 perfect cups, only the darts league was at full value. The remaining 6 god statues, the god statues were gone. In any case, the remaining 6 cups had to be improved. Otherwise, it would be strenuous to only have one special training session every 5 to 6 days. Can I do it at all? Enchanting thought that Chen Guang was stingy, but Chen Guang wouldn't tell her about the faith value. No way. How about I serve you in bed? 1 million each time? You're saying that. Doesn't your master give you money? Our Thousand Despair sect is actually very poor. We never save money. Then don't you know how to ask for money from others? For example, President Long? I'm embarrassed. You're embarrassed to ask for money from others. You're not embarrassed to sell yourself to me? Selling yourself is selling. Selling your skills is also selling. You get what you pay for your labor. I think you're quite pleasing to the eye. Where's your moral integrity? Besides, 1 million per time is too expensive. I can hire 10 college students for a year with 1 million, okay? Tisk, is there such a cute loli among college students? How can the user experience be the same? Aren't you tempted? You get what you pay for, okay? Shut up. Chen Guang didn't want to talk to Enchanting at all. Her brain was not working properly. After a long time, Enchanting said, I'm still a virgin. It's my first time. It's very tight. Shut up. After a while, they were about to reach the neighborhood. Enchanting spoke again. Brother Chen Guang, then I'll lower the price. 100,000 per time? I'll just work harder. Chen Guang stepped on the brakes and covered his face. He was tempted. However, when he looked at Enchanting's porcelain doll-like face under the sun and her innocent eyes, he didn't know where she learned it from. Although he was gradually convinced that she was indeed an adult, he still couldn't get rid of the guilt in his heart. I beg you to shut up. I'm afraid of you, okay? I'll give you 5 million. Stop talking, stop talking. If she seduced him again, he wouldn't be able to take it anymore. Okay, 50 times. I'll warm your bed tonight. Remember to be gentle. Get lost. Not long after the two of them returned home, Chen Guang tried to brew the medicine himself. After struggling for less than 10 minutes, he decisively gave up. This was really not a job that a man like him could do well, especially when Wenwen's prescription had a 9.0 difficulty index. Fortunately, there was a professional, Enchanting. Although the Thousand Despair sect wasn't good at concocting pills, Enchanting was still an expert and had come into contact with such things in the sect. At first, she didn't want to do the work, but when the head of the Thousand Despair sect ordered her, the only subordinate under the sole commander, to do the work, Enchanting pouted and accepted it. On the other hand, after the fight with Long Dingtian, the Golden Flower Granny had left quietly before the police arrived. After being punched in the chest by Long Dingtian, the Golden Flower Granny's stomach was churning, and she suffered internal injuries. Long Dingtian, this bastard. This old granny is dying of pain. The Golden Flower Granny sat on a chair in the park, cursing. When the phone in her hand was finally connected, she immediately straightened her face. Mr. Ng, how's it going? Miss Wen seems to have given Chen Guang some medicinal herbs. It seems that she wants Chen Guang to start practicing martial arts from now on. On the other side of the phone, Mr. Ng seemed to sneer. Start practicing martial arts from now on? Yes, I've checked those medicinal herbs. They are all medicinal herbs used by martial artists to build their foundation and temper their bodies. But in my humble opinion, I really can't tell what kind of martial arts they're used for. Mr. Ng laughed loudly. It doesn't matter if you can't tell. Chen Guang is already more than 20 years old. What's the use of practicing martial arts from now on? Although Miss Wen is in a rage, her heart is as clear as a mirror. She has thought it through thoroughly. What do you mean by that, sir? Mr. Ng seemed to be in a good mood today and was quite patient. Don't you understand? When an adult practices martial arts, he may not achieve anything even if he spends dozens of years. Miss Wen is just using her internal energy to attract Chen Guang. It seems that she wants to teach him something, but in fact, it is nothing more than finding something for Chen Guang to do to make him behave. So, what if he doesn't know what kind of martial arts it is? So, what if it is the Wen family's dancing scroll? Can he practice it? Let the people in the 5 capitals come back. It is useless to stay there. There is no need to worry about Chen Guang anymore. Don't we need to tamper with his medicinal herbs? There's no need for that. I just hope that Wenwen can quickly settle down and stop doing meaningless things to provoke her. Chapter 589. Lying comfortably in the bathtub, the feeling of this medicinal bath was quite good. There was a strong cold feeling on the surface of the skin that came into contact with it, but he could also feel that countless streams of heat were constantly penetrating his pores from the medicinal bath into his body. It was just that it was a little pungent in the mouth, and he didn't know the reason.
What?
Isn't this medicinal soup for bathing? Why would he know the taste of it in the mouth? Because when he just got out of the bathtub, his foot slipped and he fell into the water. Lying on his back, feeling the medicinal power enter his body, enjoying the rare leisure in this busy time. His head leaned against the slope of the bathtub, looking at the white mist above his head. Taking a deep breath, Chen Guang began to analyze his current situation in his mind. Including all the sources of faith value, his current total production of faith value was 138,972 units per day. The largest income came from the daily production of the World of Darts, 44,448 units. In addition, the Racing World's 25,500 units, the Pile Driver Little 6's 38,000 units, and Kirin Arm Little 7's 18,000 units. The other world of the Sword Tower, piano, pencil sharpening, as well as the special faith value provided by the fanatic Xuelin, as well as the special faith value from the world of the Transient Sea, including the Pile Driver and piano, totaling 29,000 units per day. Among them, The faith value provided by the fanatic and the transiency was not affected by the upper limit of the world in the cup. But for the others, the racing god realm, the pencil sharpener realm, the piano realm, the Kirin arm realm, the sword tower realm, and the pile driver realm, none of these 6 realms had reached the maximum capacity of 44,448. Oh right, I forgot to mention that after so many days, the deer cry flower, which was the medium, had grown a little and sprouted 2 more buds, so the upper limit of the daily production had also jumped up a whole 3 points. Each custom world in the Cup of the Holy Grail required about 600,000 to 2 million faith value. After all, this was the special training that Chen Guang himself participated in, and it was different from the training of others. Chen Guang was the owner of the Heavenly Holy Grail, so it was reasonable for him to enjoy all the custom-made services of the Holy Grail. The effects of the Holy Grail would not be discounted, and there were no hidden dangers. Liuli could protect him. When he was training others, he would pull them into the world in a cup that Chen Guang himself had practiced. The Holy Grail would not create a new world, nor would it take up the total amount of the 3,000 worlds. However, when he was training Chen Guang, it was equivalent to him paying faith points to purchase a full experience of the Heavenly Spirit Cup's middle world. The Heavenly Grail had to create a new world for him, which was almost identical to an ordinary middle world. The only difference was that as long as he had faith points, he could have as many as he wanted until the total amount of the Heavenly Spirit Cup's middle world was depleted. Of course, this was not all good. Because he needed to create a new world, the amount of faith required was not fixed. It would fluctuate according to the size of the world in the cup that Chen Guang wanted. For example, in the world in the cup that he had experienced before, the most miserable was the alto in the world of the car god. That narrow space made him want to cry, but no tears came out. However, whether it was the world in the piano, dart, or pile driver, the treatment was much better. When he played the piano, he could walk around freely on the Virginia, although the deck would become a mosaic, and even the sun would become a mosaic. Other worlds in the cup had a large pool with a radius of 100 meters, and it was not bad to take a swim when he had nothing to do. When he was training others, he needed a fixed amount of 600,000 faith points. If he wanted to see the Heavenly Spirit Cup's middle world, 600,000 was only the minimum requirement. If he wanted to experience the supreme service of the Virginia with realistic NPCs, he had to pay 2 million. Now, his total inventory was about 980,000 faith points. He could choose to pay a little more to improve the user experience, or he could choose to pay only 600,000 to enjoy the beggar version of the world in the cup. The meticulous Chen Guang thought about it for a while and finally decided that he had to control his costs. In order to complete the world in the cup 40 times as soon as possible, he would use the beggar version of the world in the cup. In addition to reducing costs, he also had to increase income. How to make the world in the cup, which was still in a hungry state, reach the maximum value as soon as possible was his top priority. He had to find a way to further expand his influence in the field he was good at. For example, in the Dota Cup, although no one could surpass his feat of reaching the top 4 times, as time passed and people saw more, they slowly became numb to it. With the passage of time, the countless battle recordings he had left behind were gradually forgotten by the people. Even if his name was still there, he was not a professional gamer. He had never won an international invitational tournament, and he was not a member of the esports circle either. His live stream was also a slow process, and his fame would be worn away with time. Chen Guang felt that it was necessary for him to do something. He had to dig out his reputation in the Dota Cup or the esports circle and increase it as much as he could. There was also the racing world. It was not difficult to carry out the plan. He could leave the online publicity to Xiaozong and his bamboo live stream. He just had to stay at home and play solo with others. It would save him time and effort. The competition organization, sponsors, and V-Club could all be left to Xiaozong. It was also beneficial to him. He did not need to spend much money, so he should not have any objections. Anyway, he was a professional live stream company. He had plenty of people under him. There was no time to lose. He would do it after he came out of the world in the cup. That was a good plan. As for what to do next after this, he could not be bothered to think too much about it. He would cross the bridge when he came to it. He could not possibly be suffocated to death. Bang, bang, bang. At this moment, there was a knock on the bathroom door. It was Enchanting. Director, do you need a back rub? Go ahead. Your deputy director is only wrapped in a towel. My back suddenly feels a little itchy. Your deputy director is offline. TSK, no sincerity. Actually, Enchanting wanted to come in. Although she knew that it was wrong of her to do so, she was really curious about how the painting scroll tempered the body. However, she really did not have the cheek to take the initiative to ask. She wanted to stay by Chen Guang's side in the name of scrubbing his back and secretly learn some techniques. However, she immediately regretted it after she said it. She wrapped herself in a towel and returned to her bedroom. Sitting on the bed, she sulked. She patted her head and put her palms together in repentance. Master, your disciple has done something stupid again. No matter which family it is a secret. How can I covet other people's techniques, especially the Wen family's painting scroll? She shook her head violently and muttered to herself, No, no, no. This is a taboo. Fortunately, she did not go in. Otherwise, Chen Guang would have taken advantage of her. Moreover, Chen Guang had no intention of touching the painting scroll at all.
He was just taking a normal bath.
Chen Guang soaked in the bathtub for nearly 2 hours, which was the 2 hours written in Wenwen's secret manual. Then he was too lazy to get up. He grabbed the heavenly holy grail beside him and drank a mouthful of tea in satisfaction. It was time to enter the world in the cup. He had forgotten a very important thing. Lying in the bathtub, of course, he was naked. Entering the world in the cup like this would obviously mean entering with his butt naked. Liuli, who was sitting cross-legged in meditation, sensed Chen Guang's appearance. She slowly opened her eyes and saw his rather indecent appearance. She cried out in surprise, Are you trying to make this old lady's divine technique break my body? Chen Guang covered his legs with his hands, feeling extremely embarrassed. An accident. It was completely an accident. You did it on purpose. Quickly find a knife and chop that broken thing of yours. Don't dirty this emperor's eyes. Liuli was also a pot calling the kettle black. She was currently naked as well. She could only rely on the fact that she could use her divine power to condense a white mist to protect her body. Thus, she shamelessly boasted to the similarly naked Chen Guang. In the distance, Lu Minghua also cried out repeatedly. Old pervert. Peeping flower. Chen Guang was not to be outdone. Liuli raised her hand to cover her eyes. It was as though she did not want to take another look at him. All right. I will ask you one last time. Have you really thought it through? Only 600,000? You don't want to add more money? She could not wait to send this streaking man away immediately. Chen Guang said indifferently, Isn't it just training the soles of my feet? Beggar version it is then. Why add more money? Those who do not know would think that you are a kabaki. Put 3,000 into your card. Add the money to 98,000. Not adding, then not adding.
All right.
Don't regret it when the time comes. Don't blame this emperor for not reminding you. Chen Guang said resolutely, I will definitely not regret it. Xiaomi and a rifle can only win a battle. Right now, it is still not the time for me to enjoy life. The user experience is fine. It will be fine as long as the effects are outstanding. All right, let's go. A few minutes later, Chen Guang finally knew the answer to the extreme beggar version of the Heavenly Spirit Cup. He recalled a certain unbearable night. He still remembered that day when he first peeped at Teacher Zhu's Void Refresh. Before he had time to digest this unimaginably beautiful scenery, he was lying in the Buick MPV of Vice Principal Han of the Jianhuan Academy, pondering over several major philosophies of life. Who am I? Where did I come from? Why am I here? Where am I going? Damn it, it really is the armor-style cup world. This user experience is not just a little bit bad. This is simply the most miserable confinement in history, okay? F***CK this beggar version. I want a refund. A refund. Chapter 590. If he had known that the so-called world in a cup that was exchanged for 600,000 faith points would be like this, he wouldn't have wanted this beggar version, even if he was beaten to death. The pure aura of a beggar from the beggar sex elder 9 pouches definitely didn't contain preservatives. At this time, his whole body was tightly wrapped in a warm and enclosed space. When he opened his eyes, he could see the floating mist outside, which was the original water vapor in the bathroom. His head, hands, and feet couldn't move at all. It couldn't be said that there was no space at all. It was roughly the same as when he was trapped in the medieval armor last time, or maybe a little tighter. Thank God, this was the world in a cup. At least his breathing was smooth. At this time, his situation could be seen as being frozen. The most annoying thing was that although he was frozen, he was awake. The lower half of his body was soaked in warm water, and his nose could even smell the fragrance of tea. If he remembered correctly, there was indeed half a cup of tea left before he came in, so now it was half a tea bath. Well, this was really super restoration, high fidelity. Then the question is, how should I train the soles of my feet? This confused thought emerged in Chen Guang's mind. At this time, Liuli was also confused. Before the world in a cup was really brewed, she didn't know what she would become. Now that a wisp of her soul had merged with the heavenly Holy Grail, every time Chen Guang underwent the special training of the world in a cup, her own wisp of soul would also be brought into the world in a cup, becoming something related to the content of Chen Guang's special training, such as the mirror in the acting world last time. Then this time, when Chen Guang wanted to train the soles of his feet, what would she become? Liuli was not very willing to imagine. From her point of view, although she knew that this matter was very deceptive and very sour, she really couldn't bear to refuse Chen Guang's request for special training. Holding the idea that she would deal with whatever came her way, Liuli just let it be. Finally, when she really realized that she had become an electric foot tub, her whole mind was broken. That's right, under the circumstances where Chen Guang was completely trapped in the armored cup world, it just so happened that he wanted to train the soles of his feet today. The intelligent Holy Grail perfectly resolved the drawback of not being able to allow him to exercise vigorously and provided him with what could be said to be the strongest, most powerful, most tyrannical, and most merciless footbath in history. Supreme horse slaughter chicken, let you ascend to the heavens, let you fly, let your feet touch steel alls. The great glazed footbath tub has inherited the glorious tradition of the heavenly Holy Grail. Half an alto, a mosaic computer, a super durable penknife, brass fireworks, and so on were possessed by the souls of the great martyrs. Her basin represented the long history and glorious tradition of the Heavenly Grail's special training. She was not fighting alone. She really was a basin. Sister Liuli, what's going on? You don't look very well. Is there any problem with his special training this time? Outside, Lu Ming was still in a state of shock as she asked. The pitiful pure flower had just suffered from mental pollution. Now that she recalled the naked appearance of Chen Guang when he first appeared, her heart was still beating wildly. It really was a deer. Liuli's face was pale. She didn't want to talk to Lu Ming at all. This matter was too sad, too sad. Weren't you a mirror last time? What are you this time? Lu Ming didn't know where Liuli's scar was at all. Not only did she fiercely expose the scar, she also madly sprinkled iodized salt on it. Liuli silently closed her eyes with tears in her eyes.
She didn't want to speak.
I am a basin. You damned Chen Guang, who asked you to only pay 600,000, who asked you to be so stingy. I'm going to fight it out with you. The glazed footbath tub was suddenly activated. The terrifyingly large torque divine motor whistled and delivered the strongest impact in history. There were 7 massage steel balls on one foot, and a total of 14 massage steel balls rotated crazily, ruthlessly pressing down on the soles of Chen Guang's feet. Oh! Chen Guang also burst into tears. The scorching impact on the soles of his feet made him feel like a Buddha being born into the world. 2 Buddhas ascending to the heavens, 3 Buddhas and 4 Buddhas floating in the air like an immortal. He recalled his tragic experience when he was tempering the Qilin arm last time. He thought to himself, I won't be tortured like this until I master it, right? Is this the beggar's version of the armored world of the spirit-seeing heaven cup training method? What a tailor-made one. What a simple beggar style. Money couldn't buy one. At this moment, Chengguang was also regretting his past actions. He originally thought that half an alto was the lower limit of the cup. The armored world of the spirit-seeing heaven cup had only occasionally appeared in his imagination once, and he didn't really take it seriously. But when he really fell into a deep predicament, he realized that he had indeed underestimated the shamelessness of the heavenly Holy Grail. After breaking through the bottom line, he was instantly submerged in water, and he was at a loss of what to do. The violent impact that kept surging from the soles of his feet was like boiling magma diving down, rapidly engulfing his entire mind. The screams were no longer enough to release the excitement in his heart, and the hot tears in his eyes could not wash away the emotions in his heart. He could only roll his eyes and foam at the mouth again and again, hoping that he would simply pass out. Unfortunately, the core function of the considerate world of the spirit-seeing heaven cup was basically the same regardless of its size. Right now, he couldn't pass out. Because no matter how simplified the world of the spirit-seeing heaven cup was, his mind was still protected. Although it was painful, he wouldn't collapse. Although it was boring, he wouldn't feel tired. Emotional blockade was one of the core functions of the spirit-seeing heaven cup, and it was the basic guarantee that the Redeemer could survive the entire training process. Therefore, even though the supreme version of the world of the spirit-seeing heaven cup, which had its own NPC simulation, was much better than the current armored world of the spirit-seeing heaven cup in terms of area and customer experience, the difference in faith value between the two was not as exaggerated as the difference in area. The supreme version of the world of the spirit-seeing heaven cup required 2 million faith value. The beggar version required 600,000 faith value. The poor version that was half an alto car required 800,000 to 900,000 faith value, and the ordinary version of the world of the spirit-seeing heaven cup required about 1 million faith value. In fact, the faith value required for the core function of the world of the spirit-seeing heaven cup was only about 600,000. The difference in the cost of faith value between different versions of the world of the spirit-seeing heaven cup was mainly reflected in improving the user experience, such as expanding the area and providing more realistic visual, auditory, and tactile enjoyment. Chengguang was reluctant to add even the slightest faith value, and in the end, he ended up like this. The crystal coffin was all close-fitting armor of the beggar version. Lioli, help. Can I add more money? This is so hard. After an unknown amount of time, Chengguang only felt that his feet were broken and healed and broken again, tossing and turning. He didn't know how long he had been tossing and turning. The terrifying foot tub finally stopped, giving him some time to breathe. Chengguang took the opportunity to howl. Lioli's angry voice came. Ba ba ba. Shut up, you. If I could increase the price, I would have already taken the initiative to increase it for you. Do I still need you to tell me? Chengguang was puzzled. Why did this sound seem to come from below? Forget it. Don't bother about those details. But this is really hard to bear. Give me a chance to turn over a new leaf. I want a refund. All right, just accept your fate. There has never been a world of the cup that could be upgraded with more money after it was created. I feel more sorry for myself, okay? As a noble and elegant golden finger, can't there be a correct way to open it? If I had a choice, I would also want to return you, this unlucky savior. Lioli raised his head and saw the soles of Chengguang's feet in front of him. Then his face was getting closer and closer. At the same time, the electronic notification of the heavenly Holy Grail finally sounded in Chengguang's mind. Warm-up is over. About to officially start the Savior's feet training. Mission completion. 1/100,000. Washing the motor. I'm done for. Chengguang slowly closed his eyes. It turned out that the painful torture that he almost forgot the time was just a warm-up. What's with this 1/100,000? He remembered the more than 20 million brass fireworks that he had played when he was practicing the Qilin arm. When he was finally freed from the world of the cup, his eyes were lifeless, and he stood in Cloud City. Even though he knew that Lioli and Lu Minghua were here, he didn't think of covering up at all. It was too painful, too painful. He was trapped in the armor, unable to move, and tortured by the foot tub. It might have been 20 years, 30 years, or maybe even 100 years. He was completely dumbfounded. He didn't know how many times his poor feet had been broken. Other people's foot tubs were called massages. His foot tub, in order to achieve the training effect of pulling up seedlings to help them grow, the method used was called grinding. He grinded them, grew them, and grinded them again. Chen Guang couldn't recall the terrible scene.
Anyway, he didn't see it himself.
Other than soreness, there was pain. In the end, he completely lost consciousness. It was as if he was born without these 2 feet, and his whole body was floating in the air. No matter what, he still made it through. Lu Minghua wasn't shy anymore. "Sister Lioli, do you think he's broken down?" Lioli also shook her head in puzzlement. "It shouldn't be. The heavenly Holy Grail wouldn't make this kind of mistake." "Then how do you explain his current state? If he really broke down, the 2 of us are really finished." "I'll go take a look." Lioli stood up and rubbed her nose. She walked in front of Chen Guang, but she still saw his empty and lifeless eyes. "Hey, wake up, little brat." Lioli stretched out her hand and waved it in front of him. Chen Guang gradually came back to his senses. There was finally some light in his empty eyes. Looking at Lioli, who was right in front of him, memories slowly floated up in his mind. After a long time, he finally squeezed out 2 words from his mouth. "More money." Then he said, "In my next life, I must be a money earner." He suddenly pounced forward and hugged Lioli, crying miserably. "Just like the picture, you'll ruin your whole life. From now on, you'll only be a card bar person." Lioli originally wanted to push him away, but when she thought of the pitiful experience of this brat in the world in the cup, her heart softened. She sighed and patted his back. "Darling, be good. Don't cry, I'm here. My heart hurts so much." Chen Guang still didn't stop. His snot and tears sprinkled on Lioli's hair. Tragic, really tragic. It was really heartbreaking and tearful. Lu Minghua was also moved to the point that 2 drops of tears formed on her petals. Suddenly, Lioli felt that something was wrong. This scummy fire stick was desperately fiddling with her lower abdomen. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.